Welcome to the Volvo Ocean Race and welcome to the desert paradise of Abu Dhabi. The crystal clear waters and endless beaches surrounding this stunning location will today provide the backdrop to the third in-port race of the 12th Volvo Ocean Race. Over the centuries, Abu Dhabi has grown from a historic desert oasis into a thriving modern city that's home to nearly 1 million people. The exclusive 7-star Emirates Palace Hotel and the breathtaking Sheikh Zayed Mosque are only part of the reason Abu Dhabi is known throughout the world as a jewel of culture and luxury. The warmth of the welcome the teams received has been matched by the sunny weather, allowing the sailors to enjoy Abu Dhabi's sights and sounds while they recover from the physical punishments of Leg 2. Today, however, the sailors have to leave the memories of the beach party behind as their focus shifts back to the racing. After making final checks and preparations, the fleet is back out again on the water for our third in-port race, just off the Corniche of Abu Dhabi, capital city of the United Arab Emirates. And it's here in the race village where 6 teams are preparing to leave the dock for today's in-port race. The skippers boarded camels for the parade to the waterside, with Sam Davies, skipper of the all-women's team SCA, leading the way. The home team of Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing were running their camel 2-up, skipper Ian Walker joined by Abu Dhabi crew member Adil Khalid. Leg 2 winning skipper Bao Becking losing control of his ride as he struggled to get out of the starting box. But this was a parade that Team Vestas Wind sailors were forced to watch from the sidelines. They will not be sailing today after a grounding on Leg 2 left them shipwrecked on a small island off Mauritius. It was a leg from Cape Town that was packed with dramatic action. An evening start on the 29th of November saw the fleet begin the 25-day race from Cape Town to Abu Dhabi. Heavy winds and a rough sea were the first of many challenges while rounding the Cape of Good Hope and turning north. A tropical cyclone forming in the South Indian Ocean gave the navigators something to think about, and Peter Wibbrow on board Team Vestas Wind was so excited he even took the time to make his own.
Now it's going to rotate.
Look at the wind, look at that, it's rotating. I think it worked. I made a cyclone!
It's like, where are we going to go?
Tragedy as 10 days into Leg 2, Team Vestas Wind struck the St. Brandon Reef during the dead of night while doing over 19 knots.
The crew is abandoning the ship.
Diverting to make sure their fellow competitors could reach safety, the American team of Alvi Medica suspended their Leg 2 race and waited just off the shoals until relieved by the local Coast Guard. The crew were rescued without injury, and once the weather allowed, the sailors went back into the water to start salvaging their vessel before heading home. The traditions were honoured on board each boat as some of the sailors crossed the equator for the very first time and were baptised by their teammates in a variety of different ways. The leading position was held by all but one of the boats during this leg, and the racing remained close as each team fought for every small possible gain. The young team of Alvi Medica discovered an army of small birds invading their mast and rigging who were refusing to give any answers.
Why are you here? Who sent you? Who sent you? Who sent you here? The girls. SCA, it is.
Team SCA were welcomed to the Northern Hemisphere with a more normal sight on the ocean once the frustrating light winds had passed by. A 3-way battle remained to the Straits of Hormuz before Dongfeng Race Team and Team Brunel broke free of Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. The final lead change took place just 19 nautical miles away from the finish as Team Brunel slipped into first and claimed leg victory. Once again, Dongfeng were close to claiming a win, but another second was enough for now to satisfy the crew. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing took third place as they arrived in their home port, Adil Khalid excited to return to his home after nearly a month at sea. The scoreboard now sees 3 boats all square on 4 points. Team Alvi Medica receiving a 1-point redress after assisting Team Vestas Wind. With 7 more legs to go, there's plenty to be decided. Commentary box by Mark Cavell, a former competitor in the Volvo Ocean Race. Mark, let's take a look at the skippers in a bit more detail.
Well, first up we have Charles Caudrelier. He continues to bring this team together. Incredibly diverse sailors on board, but he does need to pick up the In-Port results because one day it may be used to break an overall tie.
Sam Davies, skipper of the all-female team SCA, with 2 crew changes for today. They're hoping to repeat the podium result in Cape Town.
Bao Becking, second in the overall In-Port standings, but first overall in the race so far. And he keeps his original crew together, still fighting fit and healthy.
Charlie Enright from Alvi Medica, the young skipper from the States, hungry to repeat his In-Port win in Alicante.
Ian Walker, local boy, leading in the In-Port standings, and he has sailed with his team here by far more than anyone else, and of course he won the race last time the race was here.
Chris Nicholson and Team Vestas Wind forced to only watch today. Their boat currently on its way to Europe to be rebuilt, and the crew is set to rejoin the race as soon as possible.
Xavi Fernandez takes over from Iker Martinez. Iker is away on Olympic duties.
Well, looking at the In-Port Series scoreboard, there's no surprise about who is leading the pack at the moment. The 2 most experienced teams, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing and Team Brunel, in first and second. But Alvi Medica, who won the first In-Port race in Alicante, are only 1 point off third. And it's close right down the order with 1 point separating Team SEA, Dongfeng Race Team and Mafre. Well, Mark, let's have a little bit of a look at the weather. What does it look like?
Well, we've got a gradient of southwesterly, but that is just the gradient. We're looking now, these pictures behind here, that's thermal. We're waiting for the sea breeze to come in. We woke up in fog this morning. That cleared, it's burning off. Let's hope for good racing, but calm.
Well, the key thing about the thermal breeze here is what's driving it. The big desert sitting right behind the city of Abu Dhabi, that giant heat box. As that hot air rises up, it pulls in the cold air off the sea, and that's what's going to give us the onshore breeze. That's what we're waiting for at the moment. The gradient breeze just starting to lose the fight to the thermal. So, fingers crossed, it's looking quite good. We might indeed have our thermal breeze. Well, let's get down to the water, where at the moment we're under postponement. There's the committee boat in the middle of your picture, and on the water we have Knut Frostat, the Volvo Ocean Race CEO. Knut, how is it looking for a little bit of breeze?
Well, as you can see around me, we do not have a lot of breeze at the moment. I just spoke to Bill O'Hara, the race officer, and he was reading around 3 knots of breeze. But with the current and with a small chop here, it's quite risky. So little wind that the boats can for another knot and a half, and then we feel comfortable about sending them off. So we'll still come back to you, because I have with me here Rob Solthouse from Team Vestas Wind. Unusual position for Europe to be watching the racing from another boat, and then Alan Block here next to me as well as a good commentator. So now we're gonna follow this closely, and I think. Last time we had pretty much the same, Rob, didn't we? We had exactly these conditions at the In-Port race, and we still got breeze in the end.
Yeah, we sat around and waited for a little bit, and it came together right at the last minute, which was good. So hopefully it'll do the same today.
Yeah. And Ian Walker left the whole fleet and crossed the hull to the other side and came right. Had this local knowledge that was paying off. So now we are hoping that obviously we are going to get the race on, and Bill behind me here on the race committee boat is discussing with his team. He was hoping for 4 to 4.5 knots of breeze. That's what they want to see.
Well, thanks, Knut. We're going to keep coming back to you so you can update us how that thermal breeze is coming in. Now, Mark, I mean, looking at this venue here at Abu Dhabi, I've raced here a number of times. It's very much local conditions, and normally when that thermal breeze comes in, there really isn't too much to be done on the tactical side. But now that we're in that situation between breezes, there's going to be some difficult decisions for the tacticians.
Well, I think what you're looking here is are they going to be racing in the new sea breeze, and is that going to be established enough not there to be another transition, which is code for change, of the land breeze coming back again? And we're going to keep coming back to last year's race, last edition's race, where that's exactly what happened. They actually ended up racing in the old land breeze. Left of picture, look at that cumulus. That is a good sign, a very, very good sign that the land is heating up and all our energy is coming up into the cloud, and that is actually producing mixing of the conditions. And the other thing, just right of center, that flag, it is pretty tall, and it is going to show us what's happening. And every sailor on the fleet will be watching that flag.
I mean, that flagpole is just a sailor's dream, and what that might be able to show us is the actual circulation of the breeze that we're going to get. When we have this thermal breeze, this sea breeze that comes in, we're going to have one breeze on the bottom by the water, and then higher up in the air, another breeze going in another direction. So the thermal breeze is very much a breeze just turning around in a circle, recirculating the air as it goes. Over the land, it's rising up as it heats. Over the sea, the cold water pulls the air down, it moves into the shore, up again, out, and you get that circle effect. So it will be interesting to keep our eye on that flagpole and see which way that flag starts to move. Now that flag, just worth pointing out, that's 123 meters tall, free-standing structure, no shrouds, no rigging, no nothing. So it's quite an incredible tool if you're out there on the water, and I'm sure that all the tacticians are going to be glued to it.
Now, the good news here is the direction is on shore. You can see the flag flying towards us. But just look how streaky the conditions are. You can see the light and darker areas on the water. And those are going to be the lanes of slightly more pressure and slightly less pressure. So it'll be, it's still a very, very tricky course. It hasn't really established yet. Even though the flag is starting to fly, there's still very, very patchy conditions. I used to think that when it first comes in, there's small rugs, there's small little patch rugs on the water, and until you get wall-to-wall carpet, that's what you want. So, but there is still a little bit there. So there's good hope that we're going to get some racing underway very soon.
Well, as I was saying, I have sailed in this area before, and the one thing that's incredibly common about the shores of Abu Dhabi in the Middle East, 1 minute you can have glass water, and then the next minute the breeze comes in. It's a snap of the fingers. So I'm still fairly confident that if the trend continues, we're starting to see the cumulonimbus rising, we're starting to see that circulation, we will get some breeze. Canoe, any change out on the water?
I just spoke to Bill O'Hara again, and he confirmed that they will not have the start gun before 2:20. So we still have some time to burn, so no earlier to start than in 15 minutes from now, as he wants to see the breeze building more than what we're seeing right now. So that's the current status out here.
Canoe, I was wondering if you could do me a favour and ask Rob how the sailors will go about trying to get the best out of their boats in this light winds.
Well, one of the questions asked here is how are the sailors working in this light breeze? I mean, how do you make a boat made for a lot of wind, a lot of waves, a lot of power, and there's nothing? And how do you make it fly? How do you make it go fast?
Yeah, it's not an easy thing. The first thing that the guys out here today will be doing is setting up the trim of the boat and trying to get the weight as far forward as possible. The boat's fairly full in the bow, and in this light air the sterns are quite draggy, so that'll be one thing. So they'll be trying to maximise the weight forward in the boat and to minimise the drag. And then sail-wise, they'll be trying to set the sails up good and powerful and so forth. But it's really tricky. We've got full-length battens in the main, so every time they do a manoeuvre on the boats in this air, you'll probably see they'll end up with someone up the rig. Someone's got to kick those battens through so you can get the battens on the right side for the breeze. And that means that you end up with one less guy downstairs helping with the manoeuvres. So they'll have plenty on, and it'll be an interesting race when they get going.
Up with something. Rob, offshore the stacking and moving the sails and ballast and water around is such a huge deal. How much of that do they do on a race like this? How much stuff is being moved around down below in order to get the boat ready to be in that bow down trim?
On a day like today, basically they'll have it set up for the race and they'll be able to keep it pretty much in the same spot. So it's not as much as when we're offshore. Sometimes, depending on how puffy the breeze is and that, you're moving stuff around quite a lot. But today they should be able to set it up pretty much for the race. And the races are so short, you don't have time to go and do too much more than physically trim and get sails up and down at each of the marks. So, it's a fairly full-on race course when you get going.
All right, awesome work. Thanks, Knut.
Likewise. Back to you guys.
Well, good to see a little bit of breeze coming on the water. Now, as Knut was saying earlier, these boats are built to go very fast around the world. And you are talking about a boat that can go from light winds to extreme. And let's just take a little bit of a minute to have a little bit of a look at how the boat gets that power and also controls it. We're talking about a boat that goes average about 50 km per hour. It's got 578 square meters of sail area available. The key thing is, how do you control that massive sail area and the force that it is producing? So there's the sail area you can see on your screen. It's the same size as 2 tennis courts, and that is a huge amount of power. But the real secret is under the water, the bulb. It's a canting keel. It can swing 40 degrees to either side, and right on the tip of it, a 3-ton bulb. That is the same weight as a full sailing squad sitting on the side. So not only are we providing these boats with massive power, but crucially, the ability to control it. Now, Mark, you've sailed on board these Volvo Ocean Race boats. When they are going up to speed, it's a fantastic boat. But when it's light, do you still have that feeling? Does it still provide a sense of it wanting to go?
In the mid-range, you do. When it's sort of 12 knots, sort of even sort of 10, 9 knots, you do feel you're still on a very, very fast and incredibly powered up boat, because you've got that the stability from the keel. But as soon as you can't use the stability of the keel and the boat starts to sail a lot flatter, a lot more upright, you really do feel very, very sticky. It starts to slow you down. And one of the attributes of this race and this course is they actually cross the equator 4 times, which means that's 4 doldrums, 4 areas of very, very little confused, hot, steamy nothingness. And it really can be very frustrating. And I remember trying to sort of just looking at the sails as the sailors tried to trim these huge leaden sails designed to take 40, 50 knots, and to just see that it was the battens were so big, the bolt rope was so big, everything, all the elements of the stitching, all the work, because it's got to put up with extreme weather. And yet in the light stuff, it is just so hard to make it work like a Swiss lake and everything light and fly.
Well, we're 2 legs down on this overall journey, import racing and offshore racing all the way around the world. There's the course in front of you now. That was leg 1 that we saw to Cape Town. Then we've just completed leg 2 to Abu Dhabi. Next, we are off to China. And from China, we're going to sail round the curve of the earth to Auckland. Another Cape to go before coming up to Brazil. And then further up towards the northern hemisphere to the States, and then across to Europe, where we visit Lisbon, Lorient, and then head towards the finish at Gothenburg. So 2 legs down out of 9. It's still a very big race to go. So Knut, how is it looking on the water at the moment?
Well, the breeze is definitely picking up. We have more wind than we have had ever since we got out on the water. So I'm optimistic. This looks a lot better. It is from the right direction we wanted to see. So this is promising. I mean, it's not going to be a strong wind race, I think, the whole day, but we want close racing and tight racing, and I think we have all the opportunity to get it. So if we are lucky and Bill O'Hara keeps his promise, I think he'll have something going for us in the 5-6 minutes. What do you think, Alan?
What I like, Knut, is that we have not really seen a light air import race yet. In Alicante and in Cape Town, we had plenty of breeze, and we know how the boys are doing. We saw Ian crush the fleet in Cape Town. We saw Avamedica with a brilliant race in Alicante. But here we get a real light air race, and what do we call light air? We call it a lottery. We call it a crapshoot, right? Anything can happen. But what I'm really curious about is these guys have now sailed through 2 legs with a lot of light air. We know that they've figured some stuff out. I'm sure they have different takes on it. I'm positive they do, and I'm really interested to see what are the tricks that these guys are working with their sail car position, with their main position, with their traveler, with their weight. It's going to be really cool for those of us who really love this sport to see who's got it right.
And I'll tell you one team I'll be watching today. That's going to be my personal thing to watch. We can talk about what the teams we think are going to do well today. But the Spanish guys, I have raced against those guys and seen them in this race since 2008. When they had their Telefonica black and blue, and then they had the other Telefonica boat. And they always used to do super well in the light stuff. They're just grown up in that Mediterranean, puffy, little sloppy thing, and always came out on fire in these light air races. So that's going to be interesting today to see how that's going to pan out.
It's also, Mapfre, I think the mood on board is really light right now. I don't know if it's because the boss is away or because they're just feeling good after the holidays, but it definitely is a good mood on board, and morale is a big part of all these races, isn't it?
Yeah. That said, though, Iker is one of the best guys in light airs in the world, so they have a tough thing to compensate for there, but Sabi knows his stuff too, so that's going to be fascinating. What do you think, Rob? Do you think this is going to be enough breeze to pull it off?
Yeah, I'm hoping you can see a little build coming from the right direction, so if we're patient, I'm hoping that we'll certainly get a race and it'll be good.
If you have this kind of breeze in the start, what would be the start setup with the boat? Would they have a big code zero on in the start already, or would they go for a jib?
Yeah, no, they'll have a code zero on for sure. I mean, the zeros, you'll sail with them up to about 8 knots, and certainly in this you'll need to get the power. So, I expect the boats to be fighting fairly well for the leeward position, and to try and keep clear air and get going. So it's one thing in this light air. If someone does get over the top of you, the gas is just a killer, and very quickly you're a long way out the back. So it'll be quite interesting. And you can see now, when you see pictures of the boats, you can start to see the guys who've got the J1 set up. I've got the masthead zero up in the air, board and ready to go. So I've got their tool bag out on the foredeck, and it's ready for anything to happen.
Yeah, if we were racing lasers today, if you do a bad start, you can roll tack off the fleet and get the other way. If you have a code zero and you get completely bummed in the start, you have a massive problem. It's risky, isn't it?
Very much so, and normally there's the problem, it's all the other fleet that goes over you, so it takes a long time to get out of that bad air, just simply because it's so light, hard to get mixed.
We've got Abu Dhabi right behind us. And we know that Ian is absolutely ready for the light air, and I'll tell you, one of the most fascinating things that I saw the other day in the practice races is how incredibly long it takes to build the speed before the start in this breeze. It can take 2.5 minutes to actually get up to speed after a maneuver. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it is. And the boats for this sort of conditions are quite wide hull for the stability for the fresher air, so you end up with quite a lot of wetted surface area, which equates to drag, and it just takes a long time to get that going. And
Hey, we have Ian Walker just behind us. I mean, Ian won the import race here last time. It was a race. We started on the offshore breeze, ended the race in the onshore breeze. He was the only guy who went for that and knew it. Now we have the onshore breeze blowing onshore already from the start. So, you reckon he has an edge, Ian, just having sailed all the time here, or do you think that's the worst thing you can have, is to think you have local knowledge?
Well, I think you definitely don't want to be cocky in this situation, but Ian did a fantastic job. Obviously knew the conditions very well last time, but also that's a pretty polished team that you've got there. They've been together almost the longest in the race, so I expect that they'll be right in there and fighting hard.
So Rob, top 3 boats today?
I would probably go with the top 3 on the leaderboard. I mean, Abu Dhabi, Dongfeng and Brunel. I mean, they've been sailing pretty well, those guys, and they've had quite a bit of time coming up through the Gulf where there's been quite a bit of two-boat testing as such because they were so close together. So, I think they'll be pretty hard to beat.
Cool. Well, that's the first dip. What do you think, Alan?
Well, I did have a chance to grab Ian right before he left the dock, and I always try and grab these guys right before they leave because that's when they're really thinking about the race already. And I asked him, he proved in the last race that without the fastest boat in the fleet, and he definitely didn't have the fastest boat in the fleet in 2011, he was still able to dominate a lot of the import races because of the starts. They've always been a great starting team. The races are so short that the starts are absolutely essential, especially in this light air, as Salty said. The gas that you're sending off your sails to the other guys that are behind you is so powerful. It's going to be about the start. It always is, unless we get one of those big shifts. So let's see how it plays out. But it's hard to bet against Ian on the inshore, especially in a one design, right?
For sure, you don't win Olympic medals if you're not good at starting, do you? But Dongfeng is an interesting. I mean, Rob here, he mentioned that Dongfeng is a team he thinks is going to do well today. Isn't Dongfeng race team really one of the big surprises so far in the race? What do you think, Alan?
I think they're such a crowd favorite. Great attitude on board. I think that to those of us who follow the French offshore scene, it's not a huge surprise that they're doing so wonderfully offshore. I think it'd be a bigger surprise to see them do great inshore because the sacrifices that they've had to make to have these incredible young Chinese sailors on board means that they're never going to be as slick in the fast maneuvers because they just do not have the expertise. Two of the Chinese sailors on Dongfeng have only sailed for like a year and a half. So, that's going to be a big difference. That being said, the Dongfeng guys did great during the practice race 2 days ago. So I think it's, we say it over and over again, but now that these boats are one design, it's a little cliche, but anything can happen, and it's probably going to.
Exactly, and Charles Caudrelier is definitely a name I think we're going to see a lot more in sailing. I know he's a very modest guy, he doesn't make a big fuss about himself, but he went in that first import race in Alicante, port start, in front of the fleet. No mercy, he went for it, and that says a lot because he has confidence, he wants to push it. He's not going to sit in the back and wait.
Well, thanks very much for that, Canute. We've got a great image now of Dongfeng race team where we can see the guys on board, and you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but there are some crew changes that are happening around the fleet, and if you make a change in the import, you do have to honour it for also the offshore leg. So it is quite a big deal to change your crew. Dongfeng race team, they've taken Mark Stromberg off and they've put on a young Australian chap, Jack Boutel, who's only 23 years of age. He's done the Figaro. He's been sailing in the UK for many years, but I was talking to him on the dock earlier and he gave off the air of nervous excitement. And, Mark, if you're a young chap coming on board a team like Dongfeng who's they're starting to build a very strong reputation in this fleet. Bit of weight resting on your shoulders?
Absolutely. We have a thing in sailing called it's consistency and momentum. And a lot of teams, you see Brunel consistently keeping their crew together, looking for that momentum. And certainly crew changes can be one of those subtle things that can change momentum of a team. And they've got a really, really big leg coming into their home port in Sanyo, which is the next leg. So it'll be interesting. But I think this is a pretty nice baptism here. Not nearly as bad as it would be if they were, say, racing the import back in Cape Town with all that breeze. This is going to be a thinking man's race, this one here.
I was talking to Charles Caudrelier on the dock yesterday, and he was just absolutely full of admiration for his young Chinese sailors. They've got 4 of them in their rotatable squad, 2 of them on the boat today. And what he was saying to me was when he first got to China and he first started working with the team, he really saw a mountain in front of him to climb. But in his own words, due to the hard work and the perseverance and also the pride that the young Chinese sailors take in being part of this team, they have come on leaps and bounds. He never would have predicted they'd be this high.
Well, this is a message for sailing in general, and many sports. It's the application of time and your dedication, and the cause for professionalism. And these Chinese sailors on board they personify that. They have decided what skills they need to learn, and everything by process. And slowly, the experience will come. And they draw from the experience, from the great sailors they have on board. And a lot of the sailors on board come from the single-handed, that wonderful French single-handed tradition where there is so much in the gut, there's so much experience, and that's what they need to learn next. And that's not what you learn overnight. But all the other stuff, the process, the sail changing, the effort, and just the sheer grit of sailing these boats, these Chinese sailors are doing brilliantly.
Now, Knut, I understand that you're alongside Alvi Medica, and this is a team that was saying in the press conference in Cape Town that they weren't planning on making any major crew changes, and there's no crew changes today. So do you think that that's a good decision, or is it better to rotate people?
I think for that team it's a very good decision, because that team is out there to learn, they're out there to grow, they're out there to... This is a lot of first-timers there, and why should they change people then? Because, I mean, they want to give people experience. And this is also a lot of one design sailors on that boat. They know how to race, and I like their attitude. They may came up on top. I wouldn't be shocked if they won today. They are really good racers. What do you reckon, Alan?
Dude, I got to go out with them 2 days ago and we were dead last. So not the greatest showing, but that wasn't why we were out there. We were out there because the boys hadn't really sailed the boat. They all had a fairly long holiday break, and they hadn't touched the boat. We were losing keel pressure at one point because the system wasn't bled right, so we didn't have the keel up, and so there were a lot of reasons we didn't do great. But we finished the race, and they had this brilliant 20-minute long debrief that Charlie led, the skipper Charlie Enright led, and the communication amongst this very international and young crew was so good and so organized, and I think so savvy. You've got really smart guys on this boat, and as you said, you've got J24 world champions, Melgus 32 world champions. These guys are used to 1 mile long courses like we're going out in right now. And I got to say that I see them on the podium today without much question.
And let's not forget, these guys won the first import race in Alicante very convincingly. I mean, they sailed an incredibly well-sailed race, no mistakes. And that very modest Italian tactician they have, he is on fire. I mean, when he gets into close racing, I've never seen any more intense. I have a video shoot where he kind of calls the jibe, runs around the rig, runs with it, comes back, keeps talking to Charlie, and Charlie went like, where did he go? And here you were again. And he's been around the rig already.
Alberto is a brilliant sailor, and he sails a 100-footer, a monster, maxi yacht in the Med, and these guys are just a blast. I love them, and I hope they do great today.
It's going to be exciting to see Team Alvi Medica today. I think that's definitely someone to reckon with.
Well, on the middle of your screen there, on the virtual graphic, you can just see Team SCA. Now, this is a team, we keep coming back to this boat, but it is so important to remember, this is a team, the first all-female Volvo Ocean Race team for over a decade, and they have some incredibly impressive results spread over that boat. Sam Davies on the helm, 40 years of age. She's put together an international team, and every single one of those sailors is very, very hungry to do well in this competition. They are not satisfied on just being known as women competing in the race. They want to win.
Well, the other thing that you can see here, look at the crowd of sailors on board there, is that they do have a few more people on board to help them with the natural fact that men are just stronger than women physically. So there are 11 sailing on board. And that in these imports have been a great help, because they can actually get more hands on the pumps, more hands on the pedestals, which has really helped them on the mark groundings and stuff.
Now, important to note on Team SCA, they've changed 2 of their sailors for today, and therefore for the next leg. We've got Liz Wardley coming off, but almost more tragically than that, Liz Wardley coming off, having a little bit of a break, having a little bit of a refresh, trying to stay, in top shape for the next leg. But Sophie Sisek, herniated disc 10 days into the last leg. That's pretty painful.
Absolutely, and it was very difficult conditions. There's a very interesting current just off the bottom of South Africa, the Agulhas current, and it creates these incredibly short, sharp waves. And these boats were slamming over these waves, and it takes a huge pounding on the boats, but it really takes a pounding on the people. And if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you jar yourself, your back is really going to take a problem, and that's exactly what happened there.
Well, Knut, we're starting to see some sails unfurled on one or two of the boats. I understand that you're with Brunel. Any action on board?
They look very quiet. I can see the guys on the bow there are having a meeting on the coach roof. They could be playing chess, they could be playing Ludo, I don't know, they could be discussing the race. As Bowie seems like he's not involved, it can't be the race, it must be something else. Or they're reading a magazine. Maybe they're reading your magazine, I don't know which magazine they're reading. No, but they look very relaxed there, I must say. So the Mapfre guys are out there with the full code zero sailing along. I think KP must be fairly confident that Bill O'Hara is still going to wait a bit longer, as they're definitely not in testing mode yet on Brunel. But they're impressive. I mean, are you surprised, Alan, that Brunel is in the lead so far in the race?
I mean, how can you be? You know, Bao has done this for what? Is this sixth? This is sixth. I think seventh. I mean, how can you not be? Plus, all the maxi stuff, all the far 30s. The guy is money on just about any boat and he's so confident, and he really worked hard to put together, I think, for him the perfect crew. I think Bao probably put more into selecting his crew. You know, exactly what he wanted. He wasn't worried about sponsorship goals. He wasn't worried about anything else that may have constrained some of these other teams, like Dongfang with Chinese mission, the SCA. So Bao didn't have any of those constraints, and he really put together a crack team of guys. Whether it's Laurent Page, America's Cup French vet, to KP, who's one of the most brilliant navigators that's ever lived. And they throw the boat around. You know, they're not afraid to throw it in there, as we saw yesterday with the little bit of bowsprit damage.
Exactly. But if you go to Rob here, Salty. So I mean, you unfortunately know that you're not going to do the next couple of legs, right? So the top three boats now sharing the same point score: Brunel, Dongfeng race team, and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. If you had to be next to a boat for the whole next leg, which one would you rather not be next to of those three? Would it be these guys?
Look, you'd rather be next to the fastest boat to get yourself up to speed with them, and that's one of the advantages that these guys have had through this last leg. But the next two legs of this race are pretty tricky legs, and anything can happen. You can easily get left behind by missing a cloud, and be fighting for your life at the end of the Malacca Strait. So it'll be a really interesting leg, and I would think that no one will go into this leg with the confidence that they can just go out and nail it, because there's so many
after the first leg, a lot of people talked about Dongfeng race team being really quick, especially downwind. Is that still the same case, or do you think that these three boats have different profiles now? That one is really fast in some conditions, one is better navigating or weather routing, or do you see them as all pretty similar?
No, I think there are subtle differences there and setups and so forth. But as the race goes on, everyone's starting to learn that. And as I say, that's the advantage that these boats have had, been so close to each other for so long in the last leg. When one boat's been a little bit faster, you've had time to slowly chip away and work at your speed in that mode. And I think you'll see the whole fleet starting to close up even more. So, people will watch videos from the other boats, as we do, watch videos, just always trying to pick the bones out of what people are doing to get yourself up to speed and get yourself faster. And, I look back at all the races I've done, and I still think that at the end of the race, we've still been learning and still been sailing the boat faster than what we have at the beginning. So this race will be no different. And in fact, if anything, you're going to be looking for more, because the boats are all identical.
Yeah. You're going to watch an awful lot of videos the next month or two, aren't you?
For sure. Yep, I have been already. So it's a funny position that we find ourselves in, but we've got to make sure that when we do get back into it, we're up to speed.
It's actually fascinating what you can learn from watching those videos. I remember when I was sailing the oldest, we never had time to watch the videos in the stopovers, and you pick up quite a lot of good ideas watching videos from the other boats.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll pour through them, and you'll pause them, you'll go back, and the kids think I'm a bit strange doing that, but it's all part of the fun.
Well, thanks for that, Knut. We're actually, it's important to remember here, Mark. We're seeing Rob Salthouse out on that boat, and Team Vestas Wind, heartbreaking for them and all the supporters. They've hit this reef out on leg 2, really tragic. And a really difficult experience for them. But we've got a little video of the recovery. Let's take a little bit of a look in slightly more detail.
The timeline we're playing with right now is obviously we're trying to get out of here tonight. We know it's 24 hours at bare minimum to get out to the reef.
Hopefully if we can get enough of the boat off, it'll make a difference if we can get back in the race or not. There can be a better outcome out of it than just removing everything, so fingers crossed. We made some pretty big statements early on saying that we'd come back and clean up the reef, and none of the locals expect us to be back because no one comes back here to clean up. It's too remote, it's too harsh, and it's too difficult. And you know, I'm really proud that we've done what we said and we've come back and cleaned it up.
Well, Mark, I know that you were in Volvo Ocean Race HQ when that news came through about what had happened to Team Vestas, and you know, I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that I didn't think that they'd ever get that boat off the reef and potentially back in a raceable condition. It's an amazing effort.
Yeah, no, it is hard to believe that they're going to be back, and the boat currently is en route to Malaysia, where they will immediately test and ultrasound large elements of the boat. Obviously, there's huge amounts that that will just need to be removed and ripped out, but with carbon fibre and the modern boat building techniques, you can rejoin and rebuild and get a boat like that back online. It's amazing how America's cut boats and various different things, how whole bows of the boats cut off and rejoined and reprofiled and gone on to be very successful. So there's really good evidence that they'll be back in the fleet, and it's great to hear Rob. He hasn't stopped racing. He's racing right now. The whole team have not stopped racing. They're constantly looking at what they're going to be doing when they get back into the race. It was a massive shock for everyone concerned, and of course in race control we went straight into protecting life, and obviously equipment is important. But it was all about looking after the sailors and getting them off that reef in good condition.
It was amazing to see how the whole fleet nearly mobilised and everybody was sending their good wishes and everything. It's really an amazingly tight team of sailors and skippers out there. And let's just take a minute to go back to the press conference a couple of days ago and get some thoughts from the skippers.
We have got just a fantastic team, and I just trust the guys I have. I think this is the right approach. And as well, we know from some previous races as well, the guys who stayed together, they came out on top.
I think you can really argue this both ways. History shows, as Bauer said, that the team that wins the race very often keeps the same people the whole time. I don't think that's necessarily why they've won. I think there's a very good argument for a squad system as well.
We are moving forward as a team, and we're learning a lot every day of this race. We're not keeping everything the same every leg. We have a squad, so we rotate everybody round, and just keeping our options open, just to try different things, to keep learning, keep moving forward.
It's good to have an objective, and we are really motivated to do it well, so that's the only thing. For the pressure, we have 7 legs to go again, so we just keep focus on the next leg and no pressure about that.
We feel pretty good about entering this leg. It's definitely another challenging and complex one for sure, and the Malacca Straits is a massive part of it. But we'll take it for what it is. Obviously, it's a very busy shipping channel with a ton of navigational hazards. But lucky for us, we have a great navigator.
First of all, thank you for welcoming us back, and we're really in the middle of trying to work out if we can come back. That's the plan A is to be back, and it always has been, but we're still sort of deep in looking if that can happen.
For this next leg, I don't know. I think we are much better than we were in Cape Town. We did very good leg. It's a change with Iker, but it's Rafa coming, which is going to do a very good job as well. We didn't have any win yet, and I'm sure that some win is going to come sometime. But it's a long race, and no one can think that it's won it.
Well, in the middle of your screen, Team SCA with Sam Davies on the helm. Now, this is a team, Mark, that they haven't yet reached the level that they've set themselves. It would have been very easy for this squad to say, well, we're just going to show up, we're just going to prove that you can be an all-female team in the race, but they've come in with such high ambitions, and they're just falling short of where they want to be. They want to be real contenders, and we've had flashes from this boat. In fact, they've led, both legs at one point at multiple times, but sadly they're not quite able to find the highest gear that lies somewhere in the team. I mean, what do they do now to try and find that little bit of extra power?
Well, I'm going to reach back to the history books to answer this one. I stood on the dock and watched Group Armour coming into Cape Town, like several days late on the first leg. They went on to win the race. Telefonica led for so much of the race. They looked so fast, so convincing, and then didn't win at the end. This race is long. We're not even 20% through it. This is leg 2, and we're just about to start leg 3. There is so much ahead, and this team is continuing to improve. We see for days and days and days they go the same speed or a little bit faster. They catch up when they've had a tricky time. It's a little bit like traffic lights. If you're going through the city and you miss a traffic light and one car gets through it in front, that almost opens themselves up to another traffic light get green ahead. And if you hit a red, you lose the back of the fleet. And this is exactly what's happened to them twice. And they must be feeling very frustrated. But what we're going to see when we look back at this race is how they use that frustration to go on and do better things, because this team will succeed.
Yeah, I think this team has really won the war for supporters. I've never seen more passionate supporters out on the shore cheering any boat in and out. Now, Canute, you're out on the water. Alan, you're out on the water. Any update on the weather?
I'm sorry, I'm just being drowned out by supporters of Team Brunel, but I've got Team Brunel skipper Bauer Becking with me. Bauer, it's great to see you. Thanks for jumping on. I'm sorry you're not racing right now. You think this breeze is going to come in, man?
It's very tricky. Like the most breeze we've seen on the top of the rig is 4 knots, and in average is about 2.5 to 3. So it's easy to be us in the race committee right now, because he's having a bit of pressure on probably from Knut Frostad over here that they want to have a race on. There's a lot of boats out here. But I think right now he's doing the right thing, just waiting if the breeze comes in. Of course, he's still having a bit of time. But I think one of the other things as well is, like, if you wait later, the tide is going more and more down. So probably we can't get into the harbour, actually, because even like yesterday, we had only like 10 centimetres under the keel. So if you're any later than 4:30, we probably have to wait till like 7 or 8 o'clock outside here. And that means that then the shore crew are not very happy, because they have to load the boats.
It's never simple, is it,
Never
Bauer?
simple.
I have a question for you, which I've been wanting to ask for a while. I keep forgetting to ask it, which is you're let's say a veteran in the fleet, right? You've done this a lot of times. You're no spring chicken anymore. Injuries are starting to take their toll, right? Phil, Sophie, a number of other sailors starting to get hurt. Is this race, because it's so understaffed this time, because it's been so much more extreme in terms of the workload per sailor, is this race becoming that level that you see in football or the top level sports, where injuries are going to be a real part of the strategy of the race, is managing the health of your team?
Well, I think it's way harder on us, but we shouldn't forget we have had 2 really easy legs. I think it's the easiest legs I had so far, weather-wise. I think like if we get right really the tough conditions, then it might be getting way harder on all the guys. But I think as well a lot has changed as well. Every year we're getting better prepared. The people getting better prepared. We've got better medical teams. But there's something to say for that. You swap people. We try to sail with the same group of people around. But if you have to swap, you have to swap. That's quite obvious.
Well, I know you lost one of your standby guys. You lost Rob Greenhouse to Mopfre. Who is your next top standby guy when you've got an injury, which you're going to have one. Everyone's going to have one, I think.
Well, we had from the beginning Timo Haagot. He has been training with us on Lanzarote for roughly like 6-7 months. and he's an under 30 replacement. Of course, I think that's the hardest part, to replace some of these guys.
Yeah.
So he's done quite a bit of sailing in the meantime. He was third in the middle sea race. He actually did the Sydney Hobart as well. He was looking really good, and then they dismasted, I think, 50 miles before the finish. But yeah, and a bit regarding Rob, of course I spoke with Rob, but of course if you get it right, it's all our living, and I will be the last one to say, hey boy, you can't go, because this is, we all have to sail probably after the race again, together again. And like what I said, good on Rob that he has a ride for sure.
So Bao, you said pretty well publicized in the press conferences and to me in interviews that the import races weren't a big deal. Are you happy if there's no wind and we can't race at all? Does that make you happy, or do you get a little disappointed?
Well, still a little bit disappointed, because like what I said, look at the amount of boats. I didn't expect that many boats out here.
Great crowd, huh?
We've got a lot of supporters over here, but I think the organisation probably will pull something out ahead and do something tomorrow, probably before actually the leg start. We have these laps, so maybe they just say we do an import instead, and then after the leaving mark, that's just the score for the import. So I think they're having some options over there, and but of course, like, it has to be fair racing, and I think that's just, it's a professional event, professionally run, and I think our chairman Bill, he will make the right call, and we just have to follow on his word.
All right, 7th time around the world. Thanks for joining us, Bao. Back to you guys in the booth.
Well, in the middle of your screen, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, they've dropped their main, possibly to make maybe a few little adjustments to their battens. The tweaking of these boats, so important when the breeze comes down. And Mark, at the moment, Bao was saying there's an average of about 2 knots. If the breeze increases to maybe 4 or 5, you're talking about doubling or more the wind speed. So those lighter wind ranges become very challenging for the trimmers, don't they? You're talking about the power suddenly going up on every tiny little puff of breeze. Very, very hard work to get the best out of these boats.
Well, it is. I mean, trimming in the light air is just as hard as trimming in any condition. The main thing is just to keep the momentum of the boat going, and that comes from both angle steered. So the trimmer will be constantly talking to the helm about the best speed bill angle, the highest, your maximum high, as low as you should go to keep the speed going, all the way, trying to hold the position, trying to keep clear air. And we'll see on the turns, rate of turn, the angle of turn. If you turn the boat too fast, it quashes the speed, and it's all about consistency and gliding motions in this stuff, like you're on the ice.
I'm going to be very interested to see the sail combinations as well, because while we heard earlier that with the masthead zero, which is the furled sail that we've seen on the bow of many of these boats, it is a slightly better breeze for the lighter air. You do generate more power, but of course you are going lower. And if the sea breeze comes in, it's going to build quickly. And you're going to want to go from the masthead zero to the J1 pretty quickly. And doing that is a real challenge. So as a tactician, you're going to have to be really judging, is there going to be a step up in the breeze? And if so, when is it going to happen? And not only that, but yesterday when we had some slightly lighter wind practice racing, there was some difference between how the boats were using their dagger boards that you can see in the middle of your picture at the moment, the 2 giant black blades sticking up from the deck. As the keel gets swung over to one side, it stops being able to hold the boat in a straight line, and the boat will start to slip sideways. So you lower one of the blades into the water, that takes hold of the water, and the boat is propelled forward. But as it gets a bit lighter and you don't use the keel so much, these foils stay out of the water. But of course, you leave them out of the water, then they're in the jib slot, aren't they? They're not great for trimming. So there's few little things to play, and it will be interesting to see whether the teams are pretty much in agreement as to how you're meant to do it, or whether there'll be some slight differences in the setup.
Well, I'm pretty sure we'll see some differences, to reduce the drag, the underwater drag, and then obviously the above water drag, and issues there. So we are now just still waiting for Bill O'Hara to decide whether we've got enough breeze. The breeze is deciding whether it wants to come and play. It's nice to see, the teams now, Ian Walker and his teams, starting to sort their sails out, getting their head in the game, because it's so easy to, when the breeze shuts off, to sort of drift off, get into strange conversations, stop thinking about the sailing. But now they're up, they've got some sails up, they're going to go and try to play in any kind of condition, any zephyr at all, just to start to get the crew into race mode. But for me, it's going to be the start. it's going to be the start. And they will need to keep those boats moving from way before the start actually goes. Because as Alan Block was saying, it takes a long time for the teams, for these boats to accelerate up, 2 minutes plus. And they want to be hitting the line maximum speed. And so their game, their race will start way off the actual, before the actual start gun.
It's interesting that you say that because I've been a tactician for many years, and while I've never sailed on a boat quite like a Volvo Ocean 65, I've raced in some fairly competitive fleets, and when it gets light and the rest of the crew start to drift off and they start to almost switch their brains off and kind of save their muscles, the tactician is the one who's still constantly thinking, because they've got to be ahead of any changes in breeze.
And here comes Ian. And it'll be great to get some conversation there from Ian, because he knows these conditions theoretically better than anyone else.
Yeah, of course. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, this is their home water, and Ian Walker and his team have trained here quite a lot. I remember him saying to me before, they've never raced here as much as they'd like. The racing time is still a little bit low. However, you've been here before, you know the venue, you know how the breeze looks as it's building. Canute, you've been joined by Ian. Ian, how's Ian feeling about the wind? Is it doing what he predicts?
I'm not. My hands on the pedal.
So there's Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing in the middle. We're just trying to get hold of Ian Walker, who's just stepped off the boat, and I'm going to be really interested to see his point. Alan, how's Ian feeling about the conditions at the moment?
You know what? I'm not even going to ask Ian the questions, because I've got a much smarter guy here to ask him. I've got Rob Salthouse from Team Vestas Wind to interview Ian himself. Guys, here, I'll give you the mic and ask him what you want to know about this in-port race or whatever.
Yeah, well, Ian, from memory, last time you showed us all the way to go here, and the local knowledge has obviously paid off. How do you think if we get out here and get racing, it's going to happen?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just hope we do race. Just had a word with the race officer. We're very close to racing now. It's easy to think that there's not enough wind when the boats are just flapping around with the mainsails, but we really only need another knot of wind. And I guess all the chat on board right now is whether we start on port. The wind goes right here. It's already gone about 70 degrees right. There's a lot of current left to right on the start line, so the danger of starting on port is if you duck the fleet, you might not lay the committee boat. But on the other hand, it may well be possible to cross the fleet on port. But it's kind of relatively brave to try and do that in our big race.
Yeah, we talked before about the start being so critical in the slide air, and if you get into bad air, it's probably not a bad idea to start on port, but it's still pretty risky.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Start on port, one tack, right-hand corner. You won't go far wrong. I mean, even if you win the start on starboard, you're probably into two manoeuvres. I don't know. Conservative starts, probably on the pin under the fleet. One tack, you'll go around the top mark in the top three. Yeah, we'll have to see. As I say, the problem is the current on the start line, and with these wide angles, if the fleet are late, which they almost certainly will be, it can be very difficult to duck the fleet and lay the committee boat, and then you're in a right old mess. That's why I'm just going to start in front of them.
Sounds good. Now, in the last part of this last leg, a lot of light air sailing and a lot of close racing with the other boats. How much did you learn?
I can't remember much VMG upwind light air sailing. Probably not as much as Dongfeng and Brunel, if I had to guess. I think the bigger difference is maybe in the moding of the boats. Some boats carrying more fuel, more gear. I imagine today that's kind of very much evened out with everybody set up for the in-port race.
Well, thanks, Ian. Well, we hope we get out on the water and get some breeze that we can start. It's looking promising. You can see boats starting to sail with their zeros, and when they've got them up, they've got good power. So here's hoping.
Yeah, like I said, I think they could start now. It just, why if we don't have to start, why not delay? I kind of said to Bill, I thought 3 o'clock. We got 4.5. We could race now. And obviously with my Abu Dhabi stopover hat on, we desperately want to race. We've got a lot of spectator boats out here to watch the race, a lot of people in the race village. The last thing we want to do is not race. So hopefully they'll bang it off, and hopefully we'll get lucky.
Yeah, well, it's been a great reception out here with all the boats, and certainly the village is pumping when we left. So here's hoping. Back to the desk.
Hey, Salty, thank you so much, and thanks to Ian Walker. He's got supporters too. There are hundreds of boats out here, and Knut's got an update from the race officer.
Yeah, no, I spoke to just Bill O'Hara right now, and Bill said to me that he really wants to get going. He really wants to try to make a race. He thinks likely somewhere between 3 and 3:15. That's what he's hoping for. The challenge he has at the moment, that is less breeze on the top mark than it is down here. So he's only reading 2.5 knots up there, and here you can clearly sail. So you just want to see, as Ian said, just one more knot, you know, so we just feel a little pressure. But you're getting to that sort of 3:15 spot here locally where we sort of have to get it going. So, but he is hopeful. He doesn't want to can this easily, that's for sure.
Hey, Ian, is there anything you want to tell all the thousands of supporters on land watching on the big screen right now?
No, I mean, well, thanks for turning up. Hope you're enjoying the race village. I know there's tons of stuff to do without watching us. Yeah, don't give up. Hopefully another half an hour we'll get going, and hopefully we'll put in a good one for you.
All right. Well, we'll see how they do Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. I had a nice little walk through the race village, Knut, and I want to thank you for putting together the rock wall that I spent about a half hour on the other day. Nearly broke my head open, but it's good fun, and there's so much to do. I don't care where you are, whether you're in the States or you're in Auckland or you're in China. You know, get your butt down to these race villages. Bring your kids, bring your nieces and nephews, or just come with yourself. There's so much to do, whether you're 4 years old or 400 years old. You'll have a good time.
Well, Mark, very interesting to hear from Ian, the man who probably should certainly know these waters better than anybody else. But you know, if you don't know Ian, he looked very reserved, and he comes across quite often as very professional. But you've sailed with him. What's he like when he's on the boat? Is he quite tense, or is he pretty relaxed under pressure?
Well, tense is a word that is often used in the same sentence as Ian Walker, but that tense intensity is often channeled, and that is what Ian is learning to do. You know, really taking that energy, taking that intenseness, and really analysing everything he's doing. And you know, he does want to race here. You know, this is really important that the show goes on. That Abu Dhabi, the stopover, is a great success, and we get a great race here. But he also doesn't want a crapshoot. He doesn't want to just roll the dice. You know, as these conditions are very light, you know, he just wants a decent race for everyone. But there will be winners and there will be losers. And you know, the pressure is on his shoulders. So what you're seeing there is he probably just wants to start racing. All he wants to do is get off that boat, get back on his boat, pull the sails in, and go racing. And then the rest is history. So that's what you're probably seeing there. But he also has a great saying that he often says is better to be lucky than good.
Well, of course, your partnership with him very successful, an Olympic medal. The two of you got. How have you seen him change over the years? Because back then he wasn't, you know, he didn't have the Volvo ocean race experience that he does now. He's one of the most experienced sailors in the fleet.
Well, when I sailed with him, he hadn't really sailed keelboats as much as he should have done. So he learned that pretty quick, coming from crewing a 470 in the previous Olympics with Johnny Merricks. And then he went from that straight into America's Cup. And he skippered an America's Cup boat in GBR Challenge in Auckland in 2003. And then from that, he got into racing TP52s, very, very successful campaigns there. And he sailed bigger and bigger boats and started going offshore, Hobart and the Fastnet. And before you know it, on Green Dragon, putting a great team together. Wasn't the most funded team, but they really, really, really did well. And then, you know, this is his third Volvo ocean race.
It's very interesting when you look at the skippers in the fleet, because of course we've got some big differences. And in fact, right there in the middle of your screen, just sailing behind Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, Alvi Medica, you've got the years of experience on board Abu Dhabi, but with Alvi Medica, this is a very young team. The skipper, Charlie Enright, is only 30 years of age. A very fresh team who've set out with the goal of being a young man's team. We're going to bring the young talent up. But of course, one thing that's very important to remember with this boat is they're not only doing the the competitive side of the racing. They're also bringing in the medical side as well. Alvi Medica, a big cardiac company. They do a lot of research, and in fact they've tied everything in with the stopovers to do a lot of good in a lot of little local areas as they go. So this is a team that are doing many things on the water, not just competing, but also trying to do some good outside the race as well. Now, out on the boat as well, we can see Charlie Enright on the right-hand side and Mark Towell on the left, almost standing by the centre pedestal. Those are the two guys that founded this team. They came together and they said, right, we want to put together this young team. We want to make a bit of a statement, and they've got to be looking at this boat now and be quite proud of the success that they've done.
Well, before the whole race started, there was a statement that was a buzz phrase that kept coming up, that they didn't know what they didn't know, and it was basically trying to say they had no idea what was ahead of them, so therefore they were blissfully ignorant in what challenges they were going to have to face. But they knew that there were going to be many challenges. This team here, and I know we're only 20% through the race, has already had some big breeze, some light airs, some frustrations, some successes, and they would have been learning from all the other boats just as much. So I would say now he knows a lot more, and they've got every chance to be a very successful team.
And in fact, they had an incredibly stressful testing program on the physical stresses and strains that's just part of taking a boat through the Volvo. Let's have a little bit of a look at that story.
So the sailors have just come in from a grueling leg of the Volvo Ocean Race from Cape Town to here in Abu Dhabi. And the first thing we do getting off the boat is we take them into our medical testing facility. It's extremely important that we get these measurements performed coming right off the boat before they've started eating and drinking, because we know that these factors can influence the results.
This Volvo Ocean Race is extremely unique in a way how to study human beings during long-term stress. The factors we're looking for this test is how much body fat, muscles you lose or body fat you increase, and also a lot of blood parameters for risk factors. And then we're also looking for specific cardiac function changes.
No talking.
For the first time, we actually shown on the first leg that they lost more muscles compared to body fat than I've seen before. So we started to try to change the food on the leg too, and also we adapt a sort of an easy training session during the races when they are calm.
Guys, I'm here with Alberto Bolzan, one of Italy's hottest young sailors. And Alberto, thanks for coming out here. It looks like we may have a race here coming up.
Yeah, I hope. We are waiting for some breeze. The condition at the moment is not the best to do a good race, but maybe in the next minutes we have some path coming from this new wind direction, and we can do a good race.
You know, you come from your last couple of years. You've been on one of the hottest race boats in Europe, the Estimate Europa, the old Alfa Romeo, 100-footer, the sister ship of Wild Oats that just won their record 8th Sydney Hobart. But that's a light air machine, right? That thing goes like a bomb in light air. How does that compare to these boats, and what do you have to do to get that extra performance out of a Volvo 65?
For sure, I made a great experience on Estimate, you know, to sail on a super fast yacht with canting keel was one of the, for sure it was one of the fastest boats, and especially in light wind is probably the fastest boat in the world at the moment. And we push hard for this condition because we sail most of the time in the med. And I've learned a lot for the setup of the boat there. I had the opportunity to sail with the best sailors in Europe because this boat is carrying the European flag, so all the people is coming from Europe. It was a great experience for me. And for sure with me, I bring on this boat some experience from that period. And for this the guys in charge me to set up the mast and to follow all the performance side of the boat, and sharing the experience with the guys coming from the Volvo last editions, we've made a good step forward especially in the first period when we start to train.
Can you compare the level of intensity in a one design fleet like this with all pros to the handicap racing that you were doing in the Med?
You know, with the one design, I love it. You know, I spend a lot of my career on the one design because you made it's only you make the difference, and you have no excuses about the boat or the condition. You make the difference. If you won, you are good. If you are last, you have something to do better. So I love the one design, and especially for offshore, it's very nice because you have to take a lot of different options, and you see the result days and days later. And it's nice. I think this edition of the Volvo is the most exciting of the last editions because of the one design. We are very close, and the proof is that in the last legs, from the first to the second board or to the third, there's only a few minutes after 25 days of sailing. It's amazing.
Yeah. There's probably a few 10,000, 20,000 of your countrymen watching you right now in Italy. What do you want to tell them?
I hope that the Italian people start to follow this kind of race. It's a very nice part of sailing. In Italy, we have a big tradition for windward-leeward races, and solo sailors. We have in the past Giovanni Sondini and also Moore, and very good sailors in this kind of races. Now it's time to think about crew races for offshore, and I think it's time to think about, and maybe in the future we'll see an Italian team for this race. Would be very nice.
Can you say something in Italian to the young Italian sailors out there, the young Api sailors?
Continuate a seguirci, mi raccomando, ci serve il vostro tifo, noi ce la mettiamo tutta e ci serve sicuramente il vostro supporto.
Wonderful. Hey, Alberto Bolzon, this guy is a stud, and he runs around like this boat and does so much, and we'll see you on the podium today, right?
Yeah, I hope.
All right, have a good one. Thanks, guys.
Well, we talk a lot about Alvi Medica being the young gun team, but there's one guy on board who really brings in the years of experience. Will Oxley, 49 years of age, the navigator on board. He's done so many thousands of sea miles, and he's also a bit of a lover of all things ocean, and he took a little trip out into the desert of Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates, where the sand there was actually undersea 30 million years ago. And let's have a little bit of a look at what he found.
Geological time is a hard concept to get your head around. This is one of the top sites in the world for the ancient coral reefs. And this one's more than 30 million years old. I decided when I was about 13 I was going to study marine science. For some reason, it was a big deal, the concept of going scuba diving and exploring things. So I watched all the Jacques Cousteau movies, and we had a guy who Dad was helping with some gear that was a scientist. I went on to become a marine scientist, and my speciality is coral reef ecology and looking at change in coral reef ecosystems. Had the best job in the world as a marine biologist working on the Great Barrier Reef. Now I've got the best job in the world as a navigator in the Volvo Ocean Race. Ultimately, the things that bind marine science and sailing are a love of the ocean. One thing I find interesting is that when we talk about change and climate change, that we're standing on something that's 30 million years old, and that reefs have existed for that length of time, but they are in real danger. The fact that they've been around for a long time reminds us of just how delicate they can be if we don't look after them. It's a pretty unique experience. Plenty of desert in Australia, but it's not the sort of thing you ever go to, and there's just miles and miles and miles of dunes and sand, and it's a great thing to be able to bring the family out and do something different.
Well, there is the situation at the moment. The breeze almost coming in, but just struggling to get those last few knots that we need to run a fair race. Now, Knut, you're on the water, and of course, in your role as Volvo Ocean Race CEO, you know how this event works better than anyone. If we don't manage to get a import race today, what sort of systems are put in place?
Ready? Yeah, I haven't really.
Hang on, Knut,
So we're going to get that
Knut is
answer
just
from
actually-
Knut just as soon as he can. But I'm looking out in the water at the moment, Mark. There is some breeze out there. It is building.
Yeah, I mean, looking at all the wide shots we've had today, this is actually the most consistent colouring on the water that we've seen. So, you know, I know we're going to go out to Knut and get his opinion very, very soon. But from these helicopter shots, it looks pretty good.
I'm starting to see some streaks coming in, and on the top half of your screen there's that slightly darker line, but I understand that Knut might be ready to throw to him now. Knut, we're just wondering, if we don't manage to get this import race off today, how do we manage to adjust the scores later on?
Well, we have a pretty clear procedure that if for some reason the import race is cancelled and not happening, what will happen is that when they start the leg tomorrow, we will start the leg tomorrow. We will always start the leg, because the leg, we have no time limits, we have nothing. You know, even if they drift backwards, we will start the leg. And then they still have to do this lap, this triangular lap outside Abu Dhabi, and get back to where they started. And by the time they get back to where they started, that will count as an import race. So actually the order of the boats when they get back after the lap outside Abu Dhabi is then becoming the import race in Abu Dhabi, and will score as the import race. And then they will basically just continue on the way to Sanya. So we have a backup plan B for this, so we are sure that there will be some kind of scoring. Currently, I just spoke to Bill O'Hara again, our race officer, and he said that he was feeling that it was more solid pressure across the whole race course, but it's still very light. It's still reading around 4 knots, nothing more, but at least he said now he felt there was more breeze further up the course, while before there was very little at the top mark. But it's still very, very, very much on the limit, and he's kind of now just pushing it as long as he can, still being able to start before it's too late. That's basically his strategy. And if you look at the time right now, we are 10 past 3 very soon. I think we will see another 10 minutes at least waiting before we start the sequence here.
So do we have any sort of time limit on that, Knut, or are we able just to sort of wait out the afternoon and try and get some racing in?
Well, there is a certain time limit where basically it's too long to keep people out there, because you know we have a lot of spectators out here. We have a lot of activities planned right afterwards. So of course we want to get the racing going and have it happening, but we have to also think about how long the race is going to take and what happens after. We already have an issue with the tide and getting back into the docks, but that's a practical issue. We will solve that one way or the other. But you know, we're going to still be out there for another half an hour regardless, that's for sure. And if you get going racing, you can add another hour to that. And then racing in the dark is something we all normally do in the Volvo Ocean Race, but not in import races.
Now, I understand, Knut, that of course the Volvo Ocean Race has got offshore at its heart, but it's also got this parallel inshore series, but the results for the inshore series might be used in a very important way to decide the winner by the time we get to the finish, won't they?
Well, I mean, the results of the import race series are used only when there is a tie in the offshore scoring. So when you add all the points from the legs, if 2 boats are on the same score, the score will be broken, the tie will be broken using the import race series, which I think is a great thing, because I mean, I would hate to sort of have a tie broken just mathematically or by some formula. It's much cooler that they actually raced for the ties. So it means this is a race around the world. The winner will be the one that has scored the most points around the world, but if you end up on equal points, like right now in Abu Dhabi, we have 3 boats, you know, Team Brunel, Dongfeng Race Team and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing on exact same score, 4 points. So if that is the score, or anything similar to 3 boats being scored, say, on the same score in Gothenburg in June, well, then these import races are going to be extremely important.
Now, tomorrow we start the leg 3. This is a fairly long leg. It's over 4,000 nautical miles. And with the time today being eaten away by waiting it out on the water and the possibility of being out on the water for some time, I mean, how long do the sailors need to pack the boats and prepare them for the start of the offshore?
Well, I think, you know, they are, it's an interesting thing, but after the one design concept came in, we have kept everything very standardized. So in fact, there's hardly any changes they are allowed to make to the boats. So the boats are pretty much rigged today, as they will be rigged tomorrow when they leave here. The main difference is the equipment they bring on board and the food they bring on board. That's really the main difference of how the boats are set up today for the import race series. and In-Port race and how they're set up tomorrow for the leg start. So it's not a lot of work, I can promise you. They have all the food packed already. They have their clothing ready. They have the equipment ready, the spare parts, all those things, and they are just gonna get that going as soon as they hit the dock tonight, and they'll be ready for the start tomorrow.
Well, thanks very much for that, Knut. Now we're still seeing that slightly struggling thermal breeze. It's definitely killed the gradient. We're still just holding out hope that we will get some racing off. And of course, Dongfeng race team, very keen to get out there and race. This is a team that have done a fantastic job bringing 4 young Chinese sailors up from nearly no experience at all and then putting them on a very competitive boat with the ambition to go all the way in the Volvo Ocean Race. Let's have a little bit of a look at 2 of those sailors and their story.
Basically, I joined Dongfeng at the beginning of 2014. It was a really good year for me because I travel a lot, and then I can follow the team and met a lot of friends. Even I work on the short team, I also learn a lot. So it's a really great year for me. I was waiting for a long time because Shao didn't pick me up on the first leg and the second leg, and then now Shao said he picked me up, and then it's really cool.
Before I'm joining the team, I never have offshore experience, but when I first time do the offshore training, on the boat, I feel the life is very hard. And after I back home, and I think about okay, now I'm too free, too much time, and this is not my life. My life should be on the sea with the other guys, and I really miss them.
A fantastic journey that these young sailors have made. And in fact, in the middle of your picture, you can see the 33-year-old Chinese sailor known affectionately as Kit, who he's actually been sailing for some years, and it's been his dream to be part of the Volvo Ocean Race. He told me, but even he couldn't really think that he'd ever actually meet these heights. So a fantastic effort from him. It was his birthday on leg 2, and he was happily off the boat celebrating with friends. So quite nice. We're still waiting for that last little bit of breeze. Good to see some cloud forming a little over the land there. Hopefully just pulling up the air, heating it up, and maybe just starting this thermal circulation. We might just get a little bit of sea breeze. The race committee hoping to start the race soon. We really only need just a couple more knots, don't we, Mark? And I think these boats in this lighter winds, they almost kind of remind me as a bit of a shuttlecock. When it's hit hard, it just goes absolutely fast. But as soon as you come off the power a little bit, it just sticks in the air and it just won't go anywhere. And these boats, racing in this light wind, it's going to be very, very difficult if you lose a tiny ounce of speed to get that speed back.
Yeah, it's all about momentum. It's not just the pressure, the amount of wind. It's also the consistency. If the breeze is swinging one way vastly, it's going to make it very, very difficult for Bilahara to set the course fairly, get them off the line on a fair line. So it not only needs to come in and establish, it needs to, really, really come in and set on the right thing. I'm just seeing the right of camera shot here, just to the right of these incredible buildings here in Abu Dhabi. Keep watching that flagpole. For the all-important early stages of getting the reading from that flag of how this wind is coming in. I'm optimistic.
Well, in fact, you know, you share that optimism with Bill O'Hara. He's just got in touch saying that they're going to try for a 3:30 local time start.
Great news.
Yeah, maybe they're going to get it away. He certainly feels like it's worth to try it. It was interesting what you were saying earlier. Sorry, that's 11:30 GMT if you're watching outside Abu Dhabi. Interesting what you were saying earlier, Mark, about it's about providing a fair race. You know, as competitors, as sailors, we often find ourselves reaching around the start line, wondering why on earth the race officer doesn't just start the race. But he's got to take wind readings from all over the course, and what it seems that they're struggling with, it's not so much the wind at the bottom of the course, but at the top of the course. It hasn't quite reached where he wants to put that windward mark. So very, very difficult job for a race officer, and very easy to criticise, isn't it?
Absolutely. You know, it's Bill O'Hara's been doing this job for many years, and just looking at that flag right to screen there, just trying to have a look there while I'm chatting. He's got a very good relationship with the sailors as well. You know, he'll be chatting with them, calling round, you know, just making sure they're all ready to race, and you know, making sure, you know, he'll be telling them, you know, his reservations with things when he has them. You know, so it's you know, the whole gang's trying to put this racing on for this wonderful spectator. And here, bottom of screen, you've got the whole race village here in Abu Dhabi, with a beach and the marina there, center screen. And it really is an amazing thing. We have a theatre down here. You can watch the highlights of the racing here. And of course, boatyard. This is, you can just see bottom right hand, just near that speeding boat coming in, the word boatyard written on the top of that huge building. It's where everything gets fixed and sorted.
So there we are, potentially under 15 minutes to go to the start. That is the current plan from the race management team. All things being equal, they're setting up. They are assuming that is when they're going to start the race. So fingers crossed that the breeze holds, maybe even just continues to build a little bit more, and we're going to get the In-Port race underway. Now, this In-Port race, if it was just a practice race, Mark, it wouldn't matter. You could run it in any breeze. But because these points may be very important to decide, well, any position in the results, maybe even the winner if they have to break a tie break, the conditions have got to be right. You've got to set an even course. And as we look out now on the water, you can see that the boats in the middle of your screen, the top of your screen, starting to move. We're almost there, aren't we, Mark? We've almost got enough wind.
Well, it's that consistency. It's the trying to look at the colour, the shade on the water. That's what the sailors will be looking for. Just bring that in nicely. But there's a little bit of haze, a little bit of humidity as we look out. We start to lose vision further up the course, and that is where we have got the windward mark. So it's got to be right up there as well as the start.
Well, we were talking to you earlier about Ian Walker and his competitive nature and what makes him drive so hard when he's on the boat. And I believe we've got some other views as well from some other people that know him just as well. So let's take a little bit of a look at that.
It's busy times with the Volvo race, and Ian and Phil and I don't really get a lot of time together. We have our meetings and official stuff, but sometimes it's just nice to get away for a couple of hours.
I actually quite like playing golf with Jamie and Phil, because basically Jamie practices a lot, loves golf, takes it very seriously, but isn't very good at it. Phil actually is better than all of us at golf, but is hopeless under pressure, so he always plays terribly against us. Basically, I never play golf, not very good at it, but normally manage to beat them, so looking forward to it.
That's frighteningly close to the truth.
Bit of course maintenance.
Good to see the guys enjoying themselves when they get that little bit of a chance on the stopovers. We've just got an update from the race committee boat that they've just had to move back the time. The The current time they're going for, 20 minutes time they're going to start the race. So they're feeling confident. They obviously see something. They haven't just said, no racing today. They still think they can get this race in, this all-important race that makes up part of the inshore series. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing currently at the top of the In-Port series with 3 points. Is Team Brunel just behind them with 6, and then only 1 point behind them, Team Alva Medica. But of course, plenty more races to go. We could have a major place change. Now, the fantastic clear water out there. You can almost see the bottom, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing you can see, if you look at top right of screen, you can see darker water. And I wonder where some of these teams might have their spies. You see all those tall buildings up there. I wonder if any of the teams have got someone up there radioing down before the start, giving the teams some information from the eye in the sky. Obviously, Matt in the helicopter bringing these wonderful shots can't speak to them, and it'd be interesting to see if they're getting any intel from high, because it's so. And now we're down on the water, and look how hard it is to see across the course. The other thing we're going to be looking for is when any of these crews start putting people up in the air, up the rig, get them to the top of the rig, and they can have a much better look at whether the wind is filling in. But right now, center screen, that red and white pennant, that is the AP, the answering pennant, that is, we are still under postponement still, but there's Bill O'Hara desperately trying to get this race together.
I'm so glad that you mentioned about people maybe being at the top of buildings, because even though I'm not at liberty to say who, I'm well aware that one of the teams in this race did have somebody in Alicante right up at the top of the castle studying the breeze, and just before the cut-off time kicks in and the boats have to be on their own and sailing, they were able to give that last-minute piece of information about what they thought the breeze would go. Now, that was only one team confiding in me, and I'm sure that the other teams were doing something similar. And here in Abu Dhabi, where the breeze is lighted, it is about finding those little patches where the thermals kicked in. I'm sure that when the teams are being honest about it, they'll have some people up there. It's a little ace up their sleeve, isn't it? I mean, from that shot we can see now, the breeze is starting to look a little bit less streaky. At the top of the screen, definitely some dark patches. Perhaps that is the breeze starting to show. It's not just blowing now, it's getting a little bit more solid, and that's the important factor.
And the other factor that Ian Walker mentioned is there's a little bit of current moving across the course. He talked about left to right, and that is obviously a factor. And it's far more of a factor when the wind is very light, because as a percentage, when you look at the connection between wind and current, if it's very, very light, the current starts to play a much, much bigger part of this race.
I tell you what, that just goes to show what level these sailors take the racing to. Of course, all these boats, one designed boats, there aren't that many variables that they can play with, but the variables they can play with, they go right into the detail. And in all the years that I've been racing here in Abu Dhabi, I would have said the tide just doesn't feature into it. But for these guys, if there's a tiny bit of gain to be had, they want to know about it. They want to put it into their plan. So kind of goes to show the level that these sailors are on. I'm watching the main here on board Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. It is setting. The tailtails aren't quite lifting on the leeward side, but that could well be just because they're reaching with the main in. But that main might just be showing that there is a little bit of pressure out there to power up the sail and push it into position. We're under 20 minutes to go for the start if the breeze continues to look promising, so we could see some starting pretty soon. On board now with Alva Medica. We've got Charlie Enright, the skipper, on the back. You can see Will Oxley there. The navigator on the right-hand side, he's got his radio in one hand, he's got his iPad with the other, all the information from the wind instruments coming right into his lap, and he can look at all the graphs, all the information, and try and work out the patterns.
Yeah, no, that piece of kit's really interesting. It's taken up, the navigation having to be done from down below, up on deck, modern technology, and he can have the charts, and he can have the time locked in. They actually get both ends of the line pinged in on the GPS, so they can get the time and distance right. And if they have time, they'll even get the marks in there as well. And and that will allow Will Oxley and all the other navigators to talk to the skippers, talk to the crews, and give them time, give them angle, give them distance. And it's a really great bit of kit now.
Well, there's going to be a very important moment in 5 minutes' time. That is when Bill O'Hara is set to warn the boats that they've got 10 minutes to go for the start. So the 10-minute signal in 5 minutes' time. That's going to be a key indication as to whether these teams are going to have to remain on standby or indeed we are actually going to be racing. The course mark, we're expecting to see a windward leeward. It's probably going to be 2 laps, but of course they can tweak that depending on how strong the breeze is.
Yeah, we've got a windward leeward course set up, and it's the amount of laps that they do, and I'm only assuming that we're going to be racing the shortest of all the laps here. I'm pretty sure, and we'll know very, very soon. Brunel staying nice and close to the committee boat so they can get straight into. Now look at this course here. Look at the current. Brunel having to motor reasonably fast across, and the committee boat hanging to the current, and that is just showing exactly how much from left to right the current is going there.
So with this lighter wind, the current might actually feature in this. And as Ian Walker was saying earlier, of course, on the start line, when you're trying to maybe hold your position on the start line, or probably more likely trying to get a perfectly timed run into the start line, if you don't know what the tide is doing, you could say to yourself, well, we're only a few meters away from the line, but actually you're moving backwards all the time.
Now the other thing, if you imagine you're on like a travelator, like a moving conveyor belt of current underneath you, you are going to be inducing some more wind by the very fact that you're being moved, dragged through across the ground. You may not be sailing so fast over the water, but across the ground. And as far as the air is concerned, you're accelerating breeze, and we call that apparent wind. So if you can line your boat up on the start with the current, you are going to be going faster. And that is why Ian Walker was talking about whether he was going to risk a port end start. And if you're on port, you actually have to give way to the other boats. You are give way boat. All the other boats on starboard, with the wind coming on the right hand side of their boats, they have right of way. And it's all about risk, an analysis of risk. And does Ian Walker, who is winning the Inshore series, he is second overall in the race standings. Does he need to risk? Does he need to put his team in risk of chancing a port hand start, or is he going to join up and be conservative with all the other teams on starboard?
Well, here's the other man that I really can't wait to see how he approaches the start. Bauer Becking, a real veteran of the race. Now, he said right back at the beginning in Alicante, he said the imports don't matter. But now we know actually they matter more than anybody could have predicted. We've got 3 boats tied in the offshore series, and the import series is going to split that tie as the event moves on. So I'm wondering how much more risk does Bauer Becking start to use, because he might actually have to use the import races just to get himself ahead. So I'm going to watch this man very carefully off the start line. It will be very telling to see what he does. Well, let's have a little bit of a look at the race committee flag, and there we can see the AP flag, the red and white striped flag, but we've also got a pennant flag up. Knut, I understand that you're down on the water, seeing some flags on the start line, a little bit of action, maybe a start.
It is. I just spoke to the race committee, and they're planning for a warning signal at 3:30, so that's in 2 minutes from now. So Bill O'Hara is on the run. I mean, he's going for it, and that's great, because the forecast was that the breeze was going to shift left at this time of the day and then pick up a few knots. So what we can see around us is clearly some more breeze, some more pressure, and some opportunity. So 3:30 warning signal, that means 3:40 start in approximately 11 minutes for the start then. So that's great.
I think that even Knut, even though we don't have any real high end stuff here, we still don't have 10 knots of breeze. What we've lost is that really low end. We don't have those 2 knot holes anymore. So even though the boats are not going to be flying through the water, at least they're not going to be stopping either. So we should have a nice race depending on what's up at the top mark, which we don't know.
No, and you can feel, and it's funny when you have a day like this, you're out there watching and waiting, and you can see the sailors kind of, the whole intensity drops. And now I see around us, they're all sort of staring around, like firing up each other and then getting sails up and down, in and back, and the crews are all standing, no one's sitting. So this is about to happen, and that's great. We want some close racing, some real action. I mean, I think we're going to see it soon.
So Knut, you've asked a couple of the guys what they thought is their podium. What's your podium for today's race?
Yeah, for today's race, I think our friend Alberto, who we just had on board, I think Ian Walker is going to be tough to beat because he is one of the best starters I know. He is a very, very good starter. And these races are all about the start. I mean, the start is so much, but you need people who are taking this race today damn seriously. And I know Alberto is one of those guys. He doesn't care if it counts or doesn't count. Like, he just wants to win today. And he's so intense. And so I think Alfie Medica, Charlie, has a fantastic tactician in Alberto. So I think he's going to be there. I think Abu Dhabi is going to be there. I think Ian has the intensity. And then who's the third? Well, I think the Spanish.
All right, you got the Spanish, and great news. We do have a warning off. I'm going to throw one more thing in there. Carolyn Brouwer, the superstar dinghy sailor from Holland and Belgium, three-time Olympian, world champion, all sorts of things, is driving SCA with Sam Davies doing more of a strategist, the main sheet job. I think that Carolyn has shown all week long that her starts are brilliant, and I'm going to say that Team SCA is going to give us a nice little surprise. So what do you guys think up in the booth?
Well, we're just happy that the waiting has paid off and we actually have some breeze and a really good chance to have a race. We are now approaching the 9-minute countdown point. The start is going to happen. You're going to see the boats start to move their way into the starting area. The spectator fleet is going to move away. The area is going to clear. And as the countdown ticks down, you're going to see that all-important run into the line. Let's have a little bit of a look at the course that the race committee team have set for these boats. There's the start line, the white strip on the virtual graphic. From there, they're going to race upwind into the thermal breeze, where they're going to get to the top of the course, round either mark, it's a gate, once to the top, down to the bottom, back up again to the top of the course, round either one of the gates, back down towards the finish. So, 2-lap, windward-leeward, a very simple course, Mark, but those windward gates allowing the teams to split very early on these legs.
Yeah, the split's really important. If they went round the same mark, it would become a procession. They would fall into the bad air of the boat in front. And by having these two marks, these gates, it gives the opportunity for a first and second to come around and then go different directions. And then you throw that, like one has to cover, one has to go. So it throws so many more opportunities up for some really close racing, which is what we're looking forward to here. But I know that Mr. Clean, Alan Block, will not let me off the hook, and he will come back to me for my podium. I've got to back Ian Walker and the local boys here. They won here last year. I know Ian jokes and says he wants to be, he's better to be lucky than good, but he is actually quite good. So I'll give him a podium position. And I agree with Knut. Mapfree's crew, great Mediterranean sailors. They know how to keep the boats going. They know what's important in these light air, very short course racing. So I'm going to throw Mapfree in there, and I'm also going to say Dongfeng. Dongfeng really does need to up the risk. They're 5th overall in the inshore standings. But we've seen some great racing from them. We've seen a port tax start back in Alicante. So I'm going to say Dongfeng's in there as well for the third of my podium slots.
Well, I'm going to take a slightly different slant on it. And rather than say the teams that I think are going to be up there, I'm going to tell you the teams that I want to be up there. I am really looking for Team SCA to continue this upward trend that they had. They got a 6th in Alicante in the In-Port race. They got a 3rd in Cape Town. And I'm really hoping that they can just continue that slight drive upward, get another podium, maybe even a 1st, and give them that confidence back that they maybe so desperately need. Love to see Dongfeng up there. I really admire what that team's doing. And then Alvi Medica, the faces on that boat when they won the first In-Port race, I just want to see that much joy repeated, to be honest. So that's my impartial support to the fleet. I mean, but really, It's light winds, it comes and goes, it is a bit patchy. We could see some big surprises happening and some big lane changes. Now in the middle of your screen, on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see the start line drawn with a virtual white line. It's the committee boat towards the top end of your screen and the white square buoy down at the bottom. Alvi Medica just going past that pin end mark. That is going to be the starting line. We've got 5 minutes, 30 seconds to go for the start. Knut, I'm wondering if we can just ask you, if you're looking upwind from where you are on the water, you've very much got the sailor's view of the breeze. How's it looking, left or right?
From what I can say, just with 10 seconds looking at it right now, I would think right, because left looks sort of very, very light and sketchy. But on the other hand, the breeze has shifted left and built. Would you like to go right in that one? What do you think, Alan?
I just want to know who's going to do a port tack start. That's all I want to know, because that's my favorite thing to watch in these top end fleets is who has the biggest cojones, you know. And we'll see. Someone's got to try it. You sort of expect it from one of these guys, don't you?
And the thing, well, this is what Ian said to us. You know, he said this is all about having the balls to go for a port start, because if you succeed with the port start here, you have one maneuver and you're on the top gate. If you're on the other side of your starboard start, you may get away with one maneuver, but it's unlikely because you can have so many boats around you. And then you have 3 maneuvers. So you kind of, well, that port start thing.
And each maneuver is, in this breeze, 5 to 6 boat lengths, right?
It's incredibly, incredibly expensive. In particular, if you have to do them when you didn't want to do them, you know, when you're forced to do them. So, and it's strong current. It's really, really strong current here, which means that boats are probably going to be conservative. And what Ian said was that if everyone is going to be late on starboard, it's going to be dangerous and risky to start on port, because you may have to duck all of them and not lay. And I see that currently the whole fleet is lining up for a port start, which is pretty cool.
Well, we could actually see that, the whole fleet actually set off on port. I've seen that in other races, and you know, it's a case of consistency. If they all start basking hanging, going right up to the left-hand side, as you see here, right up to the pin end, and they all set up on start, that'll be really interesting to see.
Well, you join us in Abu Dhabi. The Volvo Ocean Race In-Port race is about to start. We've had a painful wait for breeze, but now here we are. The breeze is built and the racing is about to get underway. Mark Cavell joins me in the commentary box, and Knut Frostat, out on the water, Volvo Ocean Race CEO, giving us his take on what the race is looking like from the water's edge. In the middle of your picture now, Mafree sailing with that big masthead code 0. There's definitely breeze out there. Now, Mark, we were talking before about sail combinations, and interesting, as we look at this picture, I'm seeing a lot of masthead code 0s, but as you were pointing out to me earlier, also J1, the slightly flatter sail that's going to take you closer to the breeze, a better upwind angle but less power. A lot of the boats have got those hanked on. In fact, SCA in the middle of your picture, the left-hand side just going out of screen towards the bow there, that J1 ready to be deployed.
Well, what you've got there is power versus height. The power from the code 0, that'll get them off the line, blasting with pressure and speed, but may not be able to point as high. But the J1, that will give you a little bit more height, but I'm expecting they will only deploy the J1 if the breeze comes up just a little bit more from now. When it's light like this, with 2 minutes to go, the code 0 is your go-to sail. Saying that, we've got a couple of J1s up as they come up. You know, certainly, if there's any maneuvers to be done, really tight maneuvers, you don't want a code 0 in the air. You really do need to have a smaller sail. For a code 0 tack or jibe, you've got to furl the thing in halfway. It's quite a big effort on the thing, but it's all about keeping these boats moving. We've got SCA with the code 0 and Brunel with the J1s.
Well, let's go down to Knut Frostat, Volvo Ocean Race CEO, on the water in the final moments of the countdown for this start. How's it looking?
Well, 1 minute 20 to start, and this is a very interesting place because we have 3 boats up here. We are on the pin end, ready for a port start with SCA, Brunel and Dongfeng. and we have Mapfre sort of on starboard towards the pin. They're going to force the others to go behind them. And Ian Walker, he does the opposite of what he was talking about, isn't it, Alan? Because he wanted to be the last guy on port, and now he's the only guy on starboard up by the committee boat.
I told you he's cagey, and what we saw what Mapfre just did to every boat on port, really messing up their start. Ian's going to be able to mess with them all again. He's got rights over almost the entire fleet right now, but he may be a little bit early.
I think for Mapfre, they're going to have to struggle in their position. They're going to have to go into attack. Only 40 seconds before the start, they will be in a maneuver because it's really difficult to lay the pin end. Maybe they'll make it. No, they're probably going to make it.
Okay, thanks, Canute. We can just see the boats now on their last few boat lengths approach to the start. There's good breeze. It looks like we're going to get a race underway here in Abu Dhabi. So the final moments to go for the start of the In-Port race here in Abu Dhabi. Mapfre dangerously close to running over the pin end. Team SCA very close to being over, but it looks like we're going to have a clean start. Last 3 seconds to go. Team SCA, the top of your picture, very close to the line. They really had to put the bow down. That's just what you don't want to do in the final seconds. Mapfre coming off well at the pin end. Having to shoot the mark slightly, but they've still got good pace. All clear, says the race officer, so the start will hold. Mark, Team SCA, very close to that line.
Well, very close and having to really put the brakes on there. But two boats stood out there. Abu Dhabi, who were coming in fast, too fast. They were going to be over the line, so they went around the back of SCA. And look at the speed that they have actually got going. Mapfre's also come around the pin end. They thought they were going to be early, but what they've got now, the pin end has been able to run with it. They can put the bow down. They've got clear air to go. So Mapfre is in a really good spot here because they've got the Code Zero in, they've got the powerful sail, and they've got all the water they can sail in. They're not being held up by anyone like Abu Dhabi is further up in the fleet. So at the moment, I would say Mapfre won that start.
Alvi Medica, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing and Mapfre, those three boats really have commanded the lead off the line. Dongfeng race team you're seeing in the middle of your screen now just failed to find a lane into that start, and now they're suffering in that dirty air coming off Brunel and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. They've really been squeezed, and you'd expect them to tack quite soon, but as we all know, if you race with this masthead Code Zero, you trying to attack, you are going to lose an awful lot of speed.
Well, I think for Mapfre, I think their only option is to really just keep the bow down. We've talked about how expensive the tack is. Right now they'll be weighing up, there's several boat lengths you're going to lose for the tack. Dongfeng, here we go. They've weighed it up and they've decided to go. So let's just see how critical this tack is going to cost them, how painful it is. You can see there they've rolled the sail up. Oh no, SCA is going right on their line. That's just what they didn't want. But SCA needs to now put the bow round and start rumbling. They haven't got going yet. It's a big old manoeuvre. Look at the boat, absolutely upright. Look at all that wetted surface slowing them down. Now we've got some big wind shifts here. Big, looks like a big swing to the left. So we've got two boats now on the lifted tack, SCA and Dongfeng. They weren't up at the front, but they now are the only two boats that look to me like on the best heading.
Well, it'd be very interesting to know what these sailors are trying to do with their keels and their foils under the water. That's the bit that we can't see, and you can watch the foils just in the middle of your screen there, that black blade sticking up. That gives us some idea as to how hard they're swinging that keel over. And I wonder if, Canute, from where you are on the water, what do we expect these sailors going to be doing with their keels at the moment?
Well, I have the expert on the keels. The question is, what are the sailors going to be doing with the keels right now? How are they working with the keels? Rob Solthaus next to me, watch captain of Vestas.
Yeah, I would very much doubt they'll be anywhere near max keel at the moment. They're probably the keel's pretty close to centre line, trying to keep the low drag, but also keep the stability that they need. These boats still need to be tipped over just a little bit to keep the wetted surface area down. So they will be trying to move them as little as possible and just keep the boats moving.
What's just your take on the first 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes now after the start? Mapfre got off to a really nice pin and start there, but what does it look on the race course in the big picture?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting because you saw Brunel and Dongfeng set up originally with their J1s on, just so it was easier for them to manoeuvre, but of course they then had to deploy the zeros and then drop the J1, so out of the start that cost them quite a bit, and Mafra got a really nice time run at the start, used the tide to its effect to get round the mark, and have done a pretty nice job. But you know, Ian started mid-line and Alva Medica, and they've been able to keep up off them, and you know, Mafra won't be able to cross them as they tack to go across to the gate, so the three front boats will be all pretty close coming into this top mark.
Well, thank you very much for that, Canute. We're just looking at the moment at the virtual eye, and Team SEA forced to tack over to the right, but as I'm looking now, Mark, their boat speed 10 knots on the left-hand side. Abu Dhabi and Mafra struggling to match the same power.
Well, just as SEA tacked, I felt that there was a shift, that they were now going to be on the right shift, and I am surprised that more of the left-hand fleet didn't go. And also, if you look at a close-up of these boats, you can see now SEA really got a great head of speed up and going out to possibly more condition. And as far as I can see, they are on the lifted tack. So again, fleet desperately trying to keep the tacks down, the manoeuvres down. But SEA, I would say, the fastest boat on the fleet right now. This could be their day.
Well, the question is, do you think that was a tactical decision, or do you think that their hand was just forced?
No, 100% tactical. You know, if you look at Dongfeng, that was definitely forcing of their hand. They were trapped in there. But SEA, really clean call there from Libby Greenhalgh, the navigator tactician on board. Needed to tack. You can see her looking, taking some bearings there, middle, just on kneeling on her knee, just above the A there. Libby there with the Occupy compass there, taking some bearings to see if they are making bearing and moving ahead of the left-hand fleet. And look, there we have virtual eye showing that SEA is indeed making some gains out on the right, and then very soon it'll be about the ley line.
So Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing tacked over, followed by Mafra to sail their way back towards the middle of the course. The two boats, they shouldn't be that far off the ley line, but the breeze is down so much they're having to sail a lower course. On the right hand side of your screen, in the distance, you can see Team SEA now tacking back over from the right hand side. So hopefully for Team SEA, that breeze on that right-hand side is going to carry them all the way to the windward mark. It looks like Team SEA might have played this one beautifully.
Well, it may be that they've got the shift right and they're going faster, but right now they've done 2 tacks to Abu Dhabi's 1 tack, and we know how painful it is. And so it'll be really interesting now as Abu Dhabi are now on port, starting to pick up speed and just trying to now get the boat moving, while SEA, who've just tacked back onto the starboard ley line or near it, is still going very slow and trying desperately to pick up that speed. Here come the 7.7s. We want to see 8s there from SEA, and then we can see they're back up to speed. I have a feeling that the right is still paying.
So the question is, what are we expecting these teams to do by the time they get to the top of the course? The next mark, either one of these marks, you have to sail between and then round. Does SEA, Dongfeng Race Team and Team Brunel feel that the breeze on the right is good enough that it's worth tacking around the right-hand mark and going back down that right-hand side?
So just setting up for these the decision into these top marks. It's about consistency and rumbling through. So if you're pointed to go round the top mark, in these conditions it's best to actually sail a little bit more distance and just do a lesser turn, because a really big turn, if SEA are going to go around this right-hand mark as we look at it, it's almost a 380-degree turn all the way back, and that is going to make the boat just stop. And 4 or 5 boat lengths ahead, or even 7 or 8 boat lengths, will just wash away. If you get another boat that comes gliding in, does a quarter of that turn, and just keeps the boat moving.
There's going to be no time in this race that the tacticians on board any of the boats, if they manage to lead, are going to be able to relax. You're always going to have to be thinking, well, I could slip this lead at any moment. I might just sail slightly out of that patch of better pressure, and 1 or 2 boat length separation could make all the difference. In the middle of your screen now, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, but peeling out from over the top of them, Team SEA coming across on starboard. They will cross clean ahead. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing look like they've closed the gap up a little bit. The speed's now looking a little bit similar, but still, as you can see on the right-hand side, 150 metres behind the leaders at the moment, Team SEA. And this was a boat with not a great start, so a fantastic effort from this team on this first leg. Team SEA lead the In-Port race here in Abu Dhabi after a commanding decision on the first leg and dialed into some beautiful breeze.
Well, that was Alan Block's one of his podium choices, and just as we said, they're coming around that left-hand mark. They were closer to the right-hand mark, and they've come around the left-hand mark because it's a nice gliding turn, not a big finish, not a big corner, and now really keeping the speed, and they're just having to avoid Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing happened to put the bow down slightly. Team Brunel coming in from the right-hand side, there on starboard, and right behind them we also have Dongfeng coming in from the right. So a couple of obstacles for Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, but they feel like they can fit between the two. They're going to attack that huge masthead. Code Zero's got to be furled in all the way. Team Brunel, Bao Becking and his sailors managing to get around the top quite nicely.
Now what we're going to see here, Brunel came in on starboard and have come around the mark and held the speed. Abu Dhabi have had to come in on port. They've done a much, much bigger turn and attack. So Brunel right now, having been just meters away from Abu Dhabi, and now that distance has moved right out, and you can see even Dongfeng catching right up to Abu Dhabi now. So you can see it's all about the corners here.
Well, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing now sitting on top of Dongfeng, out in the lead. Team SEA heading down, if you're looking upwind, on the left-hand side of the course, the other side that they went up. So some interesting decisions. Canute, I mean, from where we're looking at it, what do you think is really going to be paying here? I mean, that first leg, that was a very interesting decision.
Well, whether it was a decision or not, I think the Team SEA they did a good call, but they were also forced to attack. So there's no doubt they had a poor start, and so did Dongfeng. And so did Brunel, and they were all forced to attack, and that was the beauty. They was clearly more pressure on the right side, and we can see it very quickly that they moved forward. So it's interesting though, if it is more pressure on that side, there's only two boats going back to that side. So unless you believe in the shift, no, I kind of like what Alve Medica is doing here, Alan, Alve Medica map frame, because the boats were so much faster. We were reading higher boat speeds on what would be the right side looking up the race course. So why wouldn't you go back there?
Well, and it's a pretty basic question. But here's the thing, Knut. Yes, there's more pressure, but again, a jibe in this stuff is really, if attack is costly, a jibe is even more so. The boats are stopping, and the goal is A, to stay in pressure, B, to not lose 5 boat lanes by doing 2 extra jibes, right? So I think it's a choice that people are forced to make, and as we saw with SCA at the start, sometimes you want to thank all those guys that screwed up your start because you went the right way. At the moment, though, where I'm looking, Knut, there's still more pressure on the left. In general, there are less streaks, so I would guess that Alve Medica and Mafre will have a little more speed right now as they get halfway down the course. Those guys on that side will have more speed. We're already starting to see the boats on this side slowing way down.
Team SEA still with a very strong lead at the moment, heading out as you look downwind to the right-hand side of the course. Following them, Team Brunel, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing and Dongfeng Racing. There they are, right in the middle of your picture. Now, moving the weight around on these boats, Mark, this is critical in this light airs. There's a perfect sweet spot that you just want to have the boat balanced around.
Well, of course, the boats are so wide at the back of the bus there. You've got to get the weight forward to actually reduce the drag at the back. And you can see the crew sitting up forward. There's a fair amount of spectator wash out there as well, which they're desperately trying to reduce. The marshals out there do a great job of keeping everyone relaxed and pressure down. But of course, the fleet are really keen to catch up. But look here, we've got some great speeds differences here. Look at that. Right of the course, just as Alan Block and Canute were saying, we've got 7 on the port side of the left side looking up, and we've got 8 on the left. So we've got difference across the course. But is it enough to get back in the racing?
Well, with this light wind, you really only need a slight difference in pressure, and the speed differences are huge. We've been talking a lot about pressure. Shift-wise, it hasn't seemed to move too much at the moment. The boat's sailing very sort of predictable angles. In fact, there, as you can see on the screen, the course is relatively even at the moment. There's still the going down on starboard, going down on port, pretty much the same angle. Alvi Medica and Dongfeng Race Team have jibed over from the left-hand side of your screen. They've got some good pace there, but you know what? They might have just been locked in a two-boat battle, pushing each other up and trying to get a little bit more pace, because they certainly don't look like they've closed down the distance very much.
No, and I don't think the shift's going their way either. That shift that came in on the start, about a minute and a half after the start, that to me was a pretty consistent, shift over and reason to go right. And then they got the added advantage of the more pressure. And you can see these boats coming down here, they're going lighter, they're going more upright. But it does seem that they got a reasonably good angle down to this leeward gate. And SCA here just going into the jibe, you can see it now, they roll in that big Code Zero, look back at the pedestal handles, loaded there, all the girls pumping hard on getting the thing rolled away, and the new sheet comes out, and then it is pull on the sheet, get the wind fill, get it out, and off they go. And then it's up to the driver, Sam Davis, to get the right angle, the speed build. Brunel there managed to get a little bit of lower on SCA's line, so coming across on port. She needs to cross Brunel, which it looks like she's going to do just fine.
Team SCA putting themselves nicely onto the ley line for the bottom of the course. They're going to reach down to that bottom gate, then it's one more lap to go, back up to the top and down to the finish. So at the moment, Sam Davies and her all-female team looking very strong in this race, but a little bit of change in breeze, a little bit of a change in angle, and we could really see some difference. But at the halfway mark, it looks set to be Team SCA leading. In the middle of your picture at the moment, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. They initially lost out on the first leg, but they fought back very nicely, closed up the gap on Team Brunel and SCA, and now they're going into a jibe. Ahead of them, Baubecking and his team jibe Team Brunel over. Now, these boats are going to be looking to jibe nicely onto the ley line, just so that it can slingshot round those bottom marks. Less manoeuvres, less jibe, more speed.
Now I was just watching the Brunel, obviously we saw SCA jibe, then Brunel jibe, and I think that Abu Dhabi here has just held off the jibe a little bit longer, so they've sailed a slightly longer course, but they're coming in just a little bit hotter. We talk about they're coming in at a faster angle. Not many boat lengths, but a few would maybe give them the distance to come across there and maybe try to steal a little bit of breeze from Brunel.
So there's the virtual graphic at the moment. Team SCA on the right-hand side in the first position. The speeds at the moment looking relatively even. Alvi Medica coming in from that left-hand side. They looked good at one moment on that downwind leg, but sadly Team SCA and the other boats, they're going to be managing to hold on to that lead.
Yeah, now this is a nice shot there over the stern of SCA. Concentration on the helm's face, and you can see two boats in the distance, very, very upright. Mapfrey having had a fantastic start, but just not nailing that shift, and ultimately going up the beat the wrong way.
And you can see in the middle of your screen Sam Davies just looking towards the back of the boat. She's not taken the helm at the moment. In fact, she's just doing a little bit of trimming. And this is a mark of a good skipper, isn't it? There's no ego involved. There's no self-promotion. It's just about picking the right person for the right conditions to do each particular job.
And of course, offshore, all of these sailors completely rotate. Many of them helms, and what makes up a Volvo crew, the versatility to be able to trim, helm, do all the jobs on board. Now look at that lead there, opening up quite nicely, 127 meters in front of Brunel, and lined up very nicely for either of these two marks. And again, the same goes for the leeward marks as it does the top. In these conditions, it's okay to take a mark that is maybe you sail to a little bit further away, but it's the angle and the amount of turn that you do when you get to the corner.
Well, Caroline Brouwer, who's taken over the helm from Sam Davies, she's going to be looking for that perfect line that you're talking about around this mark. And I think they've set themselves up quite nicely. They're only about 100 meters to go before they reach this bottom gate. Again, be very interesting to see what decision they make here. Do they put in that one extra jibe because they think it's worth going back out to the left-hand side, or do they slingshot round the far mark and follow their course that they made on leg one?
I think it's about slingshot. Now, I've got a question for you. You've done a lot of sailing in the Gulf. It is 4 o'clock local. Well, it's just coming up to 4 o'clock local. We've seen the wind shift already on this course. We've seen the wind be lighter on one side or another. This time of day, are we expecting any changes?
Well, I tell you what, let's look into that just after this mark rounding. Team SEA now with 9 knots of boat speed, approaching the middle point of that leeward gate, and it looks like you were right, Mark. They're going for the slingshot. No jibe drop on this boat. Still with that masthead code 0 up, they're going to grind it in, bring the boat onto the upwind course, and that nice smooth turn,
Beautiful.
Winding in the sail all the time, that gives you some fantastic pace.
Beautiful, and look at that, hardly any speed washed off at all as they now head upwind for the penultimate, the last upwind leg that they have to do on this course.
Alvi Medica just jibing over, and it looks like they've just had a little bit of a problem potentially. I couldn't quite tell from that angle, but Maffrey certainly having to do almost a crash jibe out. The code 0 was still out, and it just got tangled up around the rig. Those two boats getting very close there.
Well, in these conditions, when you've got two boats together and you have to start making quick rudder movements to avoid and set yourself up as the other boats you have to react to, it can be very, very painful. And we're seeing two boats doing a pretty good job of slowing themselves down back there.
Chasing Team SEA hard, going on to the second lap of the inshore race here in Abu Dhabi. Team Brunel leading the pack. Right behind them, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, Ian Walker, and of course the home favourite Adil Khalid on board, trying to find a little bit of a mistake that Team Brunel perhaps might make on the next leg, and they can just overhaul.
Well, with Abu Dhabi coming around here, and you can see how much current there is on the mark, having to stay low and then coming up quickly to avoid the boat drifting onto the mark. Now we've got Brunel just ahead, and Brunel did a very aggressive mark grounding to try to take a little bit more height to really make it difficult for Abu Dhabi now. And you can see that Brunel has sailed such a better course inside. It's forced Abu Dhabi to sail fast and low to try to break the bad and the turbulent wind from the Dutch just to windward.
Charles Caudrelier brings Dongfeng race team round the bottom mark. It's quite wide around that bottom mark, but a smooth turn gives you that speed. And one of those little moments when you have to decide, maybe he just decided, I'm not going to put the helm over hard, I'm going to just try and creep the boat round and try and keep maximum momentum. Canute, I'm wondering what your take is on Carolyn Brouwer on the helm of Team SEA, Sam Davies stepping off. Do you think that's quite an important factor in this light winds?
Canute's got a little technical issue at the moment, but Carolyn is she's not only done a whole bunch of sailing in the North Sea and sort of those kind of spots that can be really light, but she has so much experience in so many different kinds of boats. Everything from the Europe dinghy, which is a little one woman or one man dinghy, all the way to the Tornadoes and the super fast multi-hulls. And I think that's really where her advantage comes in, is not just the short course stuff, but she's able to make so many different kind of boats go that this isn't proving to be such a hard challenge for her to keep this boat moving smoothly and quickly through the water. And obviously that's been the name of the game. Right now SCA sailing into the most breeze on the course. There is no left side of this beat at all. You just can't go left. There's too much chopped up air and streaky air up there. The current is better down here, and Team SCA just looks spectacular.
Now, Alan, with your sailing experience, for me, it would be quite a hard thing to give up the helm. I mean, that little bit of ego wants to hold on to it. So, the way I look at it, that was quite a very professional thing Sam Davies has done.
Niall, she's an amazing woman. She really is. She's an absolutely phenomenal sailor, obviously. And I think when you've gone 2 or 3 times around the world alone, I think you're okay with giving up the helm. You've had it enough.
Well, thanks very much for that, Alan. And just as we were talking there, Alvi Medica having to do a slight handbrake turn around that bottom mark, going against everything that we've been talking about, Mark. about keeping the momentum at that bottom edge of the course?
Well, they came in a little less pressure than the leaders, and they found themselves being affected by the current a bit more, and they were dragged up to the mark, and they had to do a big turn to avoid the mark. But now with SCA, they have made that all-important tack, and they are heading up. And don't forget, it looks like they're under ley line right now, but there's left to right current, which will bring them up to ley line very nicely.
And this will bring the fleet up to the top of the course, and then it's one more leg. At the back of the fleet at the moment, Mafre, they've struggled to find a little bit of pace, and at that bottom mark, they just had to do a double jibe off with Alvi Medica, losing the battle for tactical positioning, and you can see how slowly that boat is moving through the water.
Yeah, really, really sticky, and at least they've got now the current behind them, which will help them accelerate. But they will be kicking themselves after doing such a good start, and really getting out of the traps in good condition. Not to get that shift and even just cover SCA when they started out to the right.
Well, there's hardly any overtaking lanes, and as we follow Team Brunel at the moment, they're in second place, but the chances to try and overhaul Team SCA and claim first, they're starting to fade, aren't they? With the breeze being so one-sided, it's not quite a procession, but it's nearly that, isn't it? It's not enough that you do well. You need your competitors to start making mistakes.
Well, it's a shortish course, and there's only so many mistakes you can make here. And SCA has done a really nice job now of tacking nicely for those marks, and what they're trying to do is give them an opportunity to go around either one of those top gate marks. Brunel still going out to the right. We've got Mapfree and Alva Medica on our course here, still going out to the right. Looks like Alva Medica opting to tack fairly early for this ley line.
Now, of course, it would be very easy to look at Mafre and say that they're not having a good day, but this breeze that we're seeing, it can be quite up and down, and it's important to remember that Xabi Fernandez has taken over skipper role. Iker Martinez, the normal skipper, he's had to step off for his Olympic duties. He's balancing a Volvo Ocean Race campaign and an Olympic campaign. And while you look at this team towards the back, this team might have done everything right, but sadly that breeze and the shuffling of the pack just didn't go their way.
No, I mean that's, and you can often see it. You can see it happening in front of you, and you just can't react quick enough. Now, look here. We've been trailing. We've been on board here with Mapfree and Alva Medica, and you can just see the one tack that Alva Medica had to do. They've literally lost, I would say, more than 5 boat lengths. We've been watching them doing that tack, and Mapfree just kept on coming up to them, and they still hadn't got going. Great air show come through.
Yeah, fantastic little display there by the Emirati Air Force. That's really fantastic. We were here actually for National Day in December, and I tell you what, this town really can show a party. They really know how to entertain the crowds when they come out to watch the water. So Team SCA, middle of your screen, looking a little bit light, a little bit more upright than we've seen them. You can see Carolyn Brouwer there, the helm just sinking a shoulder down, but the windward mark is in sight. They're about to close off this leg and start the final leg to the finish. Team SCA concludes this leg still in first place, holding on for the lead and oh so close to go before they win this race.
So last top mark as they come up to this turning mark. They will bear away round the mark with a convincing lead. The other boats, Brunel and Abu Dhabi, sail a lot further, bows down, how it comes round, keep the weight up on the rail, and it's a case of keeping that momentum down and heading for home.
It'll be very easy to watch this team as the bow team jump up. You can see Kafari there on the far right, leading the girls up to the front of the boat, trying to get the bow down in the water. It's very easy to look at the sailors and almost say that they look sedentary, but it's all about being gentle and calm in the boat.
And look at this lead that they've worked out, almost 200 meters, as Brunel just basically stopped looking to beat SCA, but more to cover Abu Dhabi. and that is why these boats sailed the extra distance. And we've got a slight change of opinion here. An A3 asymmetric spinnaker being set for the bow here, and that may help them keep their second.
As Team Brunel and Bow Becking bring their boat up for the final time at the windward mark, they're thinking about using an A3 on the downwind leg. Now this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Bow Becking might be changing his minds about the import races not counting. Here he is, about to round the windward mark, making a potentially a little bold sail choice. He's gone for something a little bit different. He still wants to win this race.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, with in the overall standings, he's just a few points behind Abu Dhabi, and knowing that these races split the final thing.
Well, let's have a look at this boat. They're just sailing out of picture, but I was looking to see how that crew are going to get one sail up and the other sail down while keeping that momentum that we've been talking about. It's a big move for Team Brunel. Now they haven't got to, they're not quite in touch with Team SCA, but you can see the crew on the front, the bowman up towards the front, got hold of some of the halyards. They're working out what they can move out of the way. Not going for it quite yet. They've got the cards ready to go. Team SCA out in front. The water's looking very calm. It's starting to look a lot more glassy, but the boat's still moving.
Well, maybe they see a possible change in the air. Maybe they see that they just need to be ready for another opportunity here. And Abu Dhabi is doing exactly the same thing. They are ready to pounce. And if they need to be in the same ball game with the same sail configuration.
Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, Ian Walker taking his boat round the top of the course. They're in third place at the moment. Canute, we're looking on the water. It's quite a split in the fleet at the moment.
Well, yes, I'm here. We're at the top mark here, and what is interesting to see is, I mean, this current is pushing the fleet up big time, and you know, Dongfeng and Mapfre have overlaid the mark big time. I mean, they have really given away a lot of ground. I think it was a pretty good move by Alvimedica. They had a terrible bottom mark rounding, but you know, they took the long starboard earlier and got pushed up instead of having to overlay the mark. So a lot of boats have given away a lot of distance by being pushed over the ley line here.
Well, the most interesting thing is that the lead boat, which had the least information in front of it to make a decision, Team SCA with Libby Greenhalgh on tactics, called it exactly right. I mean, we watched them come in. That was a picture-perfect ley line. Every single boat that we've seen since then has overlaid it by quite a bit. Brunel sailed probably an extra 50 or 100 meters, and everyone else sailed even more. So Team SCA just getting it exactly right, just like they did in the practice race, and everyone else is playing catch-up right now, and it's wonderful to see. It's a great story.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for that, Canute. In the middle of your screen at the moment, Alvimedica coming into that top mark. They've got clear of Mapfre, but are they going to put another tack in to follow the other boats downwind on the same side?
Well, it's. I would say that they would want to be going a different way. They're never going to pass the other boats if they're going to just follow down. But I'd really be interested to see what the team on the water see. You know, we're coming down this last leg. We're racing for the finish. Are there any holes out there? You know, this is what we need to know now.
You know what? The biggest hole that we're looking at right now is smack between the two top marks. Other than that, there aren't really any big holes. I'd say the wind is probably sort of 2 knots up and down, but very crucially, it's just under that crossover where that A3 might come into play. So although you saw Brunel and Abu Dhabi starting to mess around with it, there's just not quite enough. It's a huge sail. I mean, it's massive and it's hard to keep it full, especially with the chop from the spectator boats banging around. And I think they all know it's a wrong move. Bauer might have just been doing it to try and get in SCA's head a little bit. Mapfre's going for it too, though. So Mapfre's got the 3 hooked up and ready to go. And I'll tell you what, if anyone's going to try it, they will. I mean, they're in last place. They've got nothing to lose. And we can certainly expect Mapfre to go for the A3 and see if it works. These guys maybe don't even know if it's going to work. But why not try if you're in last place, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And you made a really good point about the amount of bobble and the spectator wave, because that's certainly not going to make it easy for them to set this kite. But it'd be really interesting to see, and it'll go in the testing book to see whether they make it or not.
Well, out fills the A3 on Mapfre. The team have made that decision that they're going to go for it. As we were saying, they're in last place. They are in opportunity to gamble. Very light airs. The A3 comes out. We won't really get a chance to know how well it's going to set until they get rid of that masthead code 0. The crew now starting to make the adjustments at the back, starting to bring the trimming on. The power now hitting the A3 as the code 0 furls away towards the front of the boat. We're going to have to wait until we get a chance to see how their angle settles against the rest of the fleet. Are they in fact finding a little bit more pace? Have they been able to bring that angle downwind? Meanwhile, out towards the front, Team SEA have jibed over, leading the fleet very comfortably at the moment. I mean, surely they're going to be able to bring this all the way to the finish, but as we know, racing in light winds, you can get big holes where suddenly you get stuck. And I'm looking at that boat at the moment, Mark, and they do look a little light. They're keeping up the momentum, but they've definitely slowed.
Yeah, well, they are. Their angle will have come up to maintain speed, and they will just be keeping the boat moving. I mean, they have got a really nice lead. You know, we saw a similar lead on the top, and they haven't really lost much against Brunel as they come down here. And just looking at the sizes of the sails, the code 0 is just over 300 square meter. And the A3 is 422 square meters, so a massive sail. Completely different sail configuration here.
So Team SEA on their way down to the finish, looking out the back of the boat, trying to keep their eye on the competitors. There you can see Carolyn Brewer, the new helm for today, trying to hold on to that wheel delicately. You don't want to make any big movement, you just want to keep everything flowing over the foils, flowing over the sails. The rest of the crew, Sam Davies, you can see in the middle of your picture there, having a little look around. She's doing main trim today. The rest of the crew up the front, trying to get the weight in just the right place.
And it's great to see the guests on board. On the In-Port, we really encourage the teams to take guests, and they are having a fantastic time, sat comfortably in their throne at the back of the boat, and getting an incredible insight. How many other sports do you have the opportunity to take people into the middle of the game, right on the pitch?
Now we're looking with Carolyn Brewer on the helm there, but of course it's very easy to just assume she's come out of nowhere, and it's a bit of a gamble to put her on the helm. But this is a girl that's gone to the Olympics 3 times. She was in Sydney, Athens and the Beijing Games, and of course she sailed on Sports 2 in the 2001-2002 Volvo Ocean Race. So while Sam Davies and in fact every sailor on that boat all have their successes, Carolyn Brewer's, she's got some good success stories of her own.
And you can see she's just getting information from the crew. She's, you can see her body language just gently trying to ease the boat down. Now she's going to come down and trim from the leeward side of the boat, just very, very close to the finish. Could be one more jibe in, and don't forget that current pushing them from left to right.
The 10 knots as the all-female boat races their way across the line. Only a few boat lengths to go before they claim victory here in the Abu Dhabi In-Port race and their first win of an In-Port race at the Volvo Ocean Race. There they go, they crossed the line, high fives all round. Very, very satisfying race. They made that look easy.
Well, that is brilliant. This team they know that they've had so much potential, and they've finally converted it. There's Annie Lush from the UK on leeward trim, very, very happy. High fives all round. And they really deserve this. They've had a tough race to date. And this is going to be the confidence that this team needs going into a very tricky leg, a very tricky, potentially quite light next leg. So they're going to see these conditions again on the way to Sanya.
And I think it's so important that you talk about the confidence building aspect of getting this win here, because this is a team that when you look at it on paper, they really can perform. They could go all the way and get right up to the top of the results table. So a little win like this here reminds them that yes, we can do it. We can find that speed. Team Brunel in second place, leading Abu Dhabi Ocean Race in third, but Team Brunel, they've got enough of a gap. They're going to hold on to that second place finish. Bauer Becking, the veteran of the Volvo Ocean Race, this is his 7th Volvo Ocean Race campaign, and here he brings his team across the finish line. A nice result for these sailors. The In-Port series might be very important, and he is doing enough to ensure that if it does count, he's going to be on the winning side.
Absolutely, and as Team Brunel cross the finishing line to take second in the Abu Dhabi In-Port race, you've got to remember that this was the first team out of the left-hand side going up the beat. So they did really, really well to rescue that left-hand side and finish second, just ahead of Abu Dhabi.
The boys on board Team Brunel looking like they're just taking it in their stride there. No high fives for them. Very, very, very reserved victory, but you can tell they're going to be smiling. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, Ian Walker and Adil Khalid, the young lad from the United Arab Emirates, now crossing the line to take third place in their home waters. A nice result from them. They're going to be under a lot of pressure to perform, but with a fleet like this, a third, that's a fantastic result.
Yep, that is a result. Ian Walker and his team, they'll be happy with that. That is, you know, they raced conservatively, and that is a conservative finish. Things could be a lot worse in these conditions. So they're pretty happy. And then Adil Khalid with the flag up there. A podium finish for the local team, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing.
Next approaching the finish line in fourth position, Dongfeng, the Chinese team, skippered by Charles Quadrelier from France. Fantastic effort from this boat. Again, a fourth. It's not their best result, but it still goes to show that they are hot on their heels, even if they're not leading. A really nice race for these boys. Done a very good job of keeping their heads cool in the dying pressure. Now they bring the boat home. I think we're going to be able to see more and more from this team, and what a testament to Charles Quadrelier and everybody on board that boat for the incredibly high ambitions that they've set themselves. They don't just want to win, they want to bring offshore sailing to China and really establish it.
Yeah, now they'll be looking back at that start and really feeling that it was all over at the beginning there and having to tack away.
Well, I'm just wondering if we can cut to the water. Knut, just your final thoughts before we close off air. Fantastic day. Team SCA did a brilliant job.
Brilliant job, and I mean, it's not the first time. I mean, in Cape Town they were up there as well and sailed a very, very good In-Port race. So of course they have a couple of extra hands on the boat, but you know, Caroline Brower and those girls, they are very, very good short course sailors. I think it's really cool because I think it also gives them a boost for the leg. So they clearly can do it, and let's see now on the next leg. What do you think, Alan?
You know, not only that, Knut, but tomorrow. The legs start, we may see something very similar to this. So not only does it give them a morale boost, as we can hear thousands of people on all these boats cheering on SCA, but not only does it give them a morale boost, it gives them an actual experiential boost. They may be looking for that right tomorrow instead of accidentally finding it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like we could have scripted it. So that's pretty cool. And I'm really happy we got a race going, and I think we finished it and started it just in time. And it was all about the first upwind, but that's how it is in these conditions. So no, we're happy, very happy.
Now, talking about being happy, let me think. Whose pick was SCA before the race then? They've gone.
I believe it was Knut Frostad, but he's clearly just too modest to claim it. But you know, this is Knut Frostad. He gets very involved with all the teams. He does know them intimately. Alva Medica now about to finish. Alva Medica and Mafre just behind them. These two teams have struggled in this race a little bit. They were a little unlucky and just couldn't quite unwind themselves.
Well, it was that start we talked about being, you know, the start being so important, and it wasn't just getting off the line. It was about going the right way as well. And you know, Alva Medica really struggled back there, and the two boats coming down that first run, they seemed to slow themselves down, which gave them even less opportunity to get back into this race. So they will, you know, they'll certainly come in, you know, having feeling the frustrations of a light air race.
I'll tell you what, a very tight race in last place though. Mafre and Alva Medica crossing the line almost neck and neck. Alva Medica just pipping Mafre to the line, but very close race there for the two, and I always like the fact that when you get competitive people out in the water, it doesn't matter whether you're in first or last place, you're always trying to claim every last little meter and beat anybody that you can. Those two teams, they won't be happy about their results, but it's their performance. Do they think they sailed well? Did they make any major mistakes? Every day out in the water, they're trying to learn. Team SCA, the all-female team, the first all-female team in over a decade in the Volvo Ocean Race. Today is their day. They are going to be feeling very nice about their performance out in the water. Now, as we look at the results, here's the results for the In-Port race here in Abu Dhabi. Team SCA commanding win to take first place. Team Brunel, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, putting in some good performances and getting themselves on the podium. Dongfeng Race Team just off the back, but Mafre and Alvi Medica struggling at the back. So let's have a little look at overall after 3 In-Port races. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing still in the lead with 6 points. Team Brunel and Team SCA now getting onto the podium. It was Alva Medica slipping into 3rd place. So a few little changes. Well, we've had a fantastic day out on the water here on Abu Dhabi. It's really performed well. A long waiting game for that breeze to fill in, but we were rewarded by some fantastic racing. Don't forget, we've got the leg 3 start, 4,600 nautical mile race to China. That's going to be tomorrow, 3rd of January, 2 p.m. local time, 10 a.m. UTC. Join us then. It's going to be another great day of action. Thanks very much, and join us tomorrow.